Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Monday, the 6th of July, 2026. We are on the fourth volume of Kitab Al-Tawheed by Professor Muhammad al-Masri. We are likely going to be finishing the book today, inshallah. We have chapter 14, page 361. Chapter title is Scholarly Controversies. Okay, so page 361, Scholarly Controversies. I'll start reading, and then Professor, feel free to interrupt as need be, or we can take breaks for further discussion. So, with the text, as has to date been exhaustively set out, ultimately, what is truly significant is the nature, essence, and reality of conceptual content, irrespective of varying names and expressions that may be attached to them. Therefore, we note with a sense of clarity, precision, and poignancy that whoever believes in the following, be it part of it or whole, or even something similar, has attributed some of the qualities of uluhiyya, divinity, thereby namely conferring a deservingness of ibadah, has made another god or deity alongside or besides Allah. Examples indeed abound, but these can be summarized here as they relate to claims that someone or another being, entity other than Allah, manages the universe independently of the will, decree, and permission of Allah. Or that this being or entity possesses power in control comparable or rivaling that Allah, even if only in a single matter. That certain beings or entities have the power to escape Allah by flight, or that they have the ability to provide protection against Allah, which some of the pagan Arabs believed regarding the jinn, or that any besides Allah has the right of intercession with him that must be accepted without his express permission, perhaps even arising from claiming that this is due to beings or entities being his offspring, again like the pagan Arabs claimed, or the attribution to other than Allah the matter of creation, bringing existence into being, as the dualists claimed, with regard to what they termed as the god of evil, Ahriman.
Or the demonic entity or something.
So basically, to summarize this section, it's the entire subject of ibadah is predicated on the nature of the entity being addressed.
Or they call it the demonic or the demiurgic existence. Not outright Satan. Some people call it the demiurgic existence, like in Marcon, the Christian heretics of the first century.
Whereby he believed that the devil intercepted the message of it.
That the creator of the world is an evil entity called the demiurge or something like that. And Jesus, the son of the remote good God, who came to save them from the demiurge. Which is obviously internally absurd, because if the creating of the evil world by the demiurge could not be prevented by Allah, then no coming of son and dying on a cross will save the world, or do good to the harm already done. Who failed to do the first, or was unable, cannot be doing the second. That's just absurd.
It becomes a cat and mouse game that you've already relegated your deity.
It's a circularity. It's nonsensical.
Effectively, absolute shirk there.
Yeah.
Okay. It seems to
absolute nonsense, which is a type shirk.
It seems to us that the honourable readers may well have grown weary of the repeated citation of these texts and of the continual responses to them. The texts resemble one another, and the responses are similar, most of which are direct quotations of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah's words in their original phrasing. Even where there is editing or refinement by the Wahhabis, it tends towards further exaggeration of error, at times reaching the level of absurdity and the excess in religion to the point of obsession and madness. Perhaps it suffices to stop here, which for the seeker of truth is more than sufficient, Allah willing. We also hope that the matter has become so clear in the minds of the readers to the extent that it feels almost tangible, physically perceptible, and not merely apprehended by the intellect. Whoever ascribes to any being or entity such qualities or anything comparable to them has thereby attributed to it some of the characteristics of uluhiyya, that is entitlement to ibadah. By so doing, he has made it alongside Allah another ilah. Thus, this holds irrespective of his other doctrinal assumptions concerning it. It is not required that he believe it to be azali, pre-eternal, wajib al-wujud, necessary in existence, or that it substitutes in a divine unsur, element, jawhar, substance, or jins, genus. Rather, it is entirely conceivable that it is contingent and created, as with the supposed god of evil, posited by some sects of the Magians. Nor is it required that he hold it to be the product of ittihad, union, tajassud, incarnation, or hulul, indwelling of Allah in a creature. It is even conceivable that it attained the rank of divinity through taraqqi, ascent or progression, having transformed into a divine being after not being so. Nor
Like
is it
Hindus.
necessary,
Like in Hinduism, yeah. Mhm.
nor is it necessary that he ascribe to it khaliqiyya, creativity, raziqiyya, provision, or positive efficacy. It suffices that he attribute to it an independent negative efficacy, such as the capacity to hide from God or to render him incapable by escape.
Mhm.
Secondly, regardless of its designation, whether he calls it an ilah, God, shaitan, devil, malak, angel, a celestial intellect, a higher or lower spirit, or anything else, it is also regardless of his affective stance towards it, whether he loves it, detests it, or is indifferent, or whether or not he offers sha'air, rituals, or qarabin, sacrifices to it. Moreover, it is also regardless of the nomenclature given to such acts, whether explicitly termed ibadah or described as dua, supplication, nida, invocation, takreem, honoring, ihtiram, respect, tawassul, intercessory mediation, wasata, intermediation, or istishfa, seeking intercession. The decisive factor lies in the substance and reality of the belief itself and not necessarily in the terminologies employed.
Absolutely.
Every act of tadallul, abasement, and khudu, submission, constitutes genuine worship, irrespective of the label applied to it. It is worship in reality, even if denominated nida, tahrim, ihtiram, tawassul, or wasita.
And doesn't people give it all kinds of names, but the object which that is connected to, does there's a creed or belief in that he has certain attributes which make him worthy of the genuine title of a divine and ilah, even a deficient and limited ilah, or not? If that's then the acts are ibadah. If these was are ibadah, and that's all shirk. The creed is a creed of shirk, and the acts are acts of shirk. If not, that's neither nor. That's it. That's it.
Likewise,
So the fundamental creed in the entity addressed with these rituals and so on, or the ritual related to, if it contains a shirky belief and real attribution of the divinity, with as described, even if it's a limited one, but one limited aspect, halas, that's shirk, and the rituals must be classified as ibadah. Otherwise, no. All the names and things, there's so many names and so many cover ups, sometimes deliberate, sometimes not deliberate. It doesn't mean anything.
Likewise, whoever claims that there exists for other than Allah the right of tashri', legislation, whether he calls that uluhiyah, divinity, or rububiyyah, lordship, or names it the exercise of sovereignty and freedom, or attributes it to the sovereignty of the people of or the state, or traces it back to the divine right of kings, or to tafweed, delegation from Allah to the college of cardinals, or lies against Allah by naming it legitimate obedience to those in authority, such as the accursed Levantine obedience, whoever asserts any such claim and attributes it to other than Allah has thereby made that entity a Sayyid, master, and a Rabb, Lord besides Allah. By virtue of that belief, he is a mushrik kafir, a worshipper of that entity besides Allah. His deeds are nullified and his striving brought to ruin. If he obeys such an authority on the basis of that belief, then that obedience constitutes ibadah. It is an increase in kufr and shirk. Thus, when you say Levantine obedience, is that the instance where the Shami scholars, when they swore,
Levantine obedience,
when 50 of them made testimony, that one, yeah.
Yeah, that's it should be written also with Ta'asham, because the Levantine, the European will not understand those Levantine obedience. It's unique for Islamic history as expression, but the meaning is clear.
Thus, the decisive necessarily thus the decisive factor always and forever is the content and reality of the belief, not necessarily the terminologies employed. Every act directed towards such an entity of da'wah, obedience, ittiba, following, and iltizam, commitment to its command and prohibitions, is genuine ibadah, regardless of the label its practitioner applies to it. It is ibadah in reality, even if denominated tahrim, honoring, ihtiram, respect for the law, or khudu lil nizam, submission to the system. Thus, al-ibadah, acts of worship, are therefore aqwal wa ظاهرة
external and
وباطنة.
internal acts. Yeah.
External, internal
acts
words
is
and
love,
deeds.
hate, fear. That's internal acts. The acts with the soul of the heart. It's called conventional like that. أقوال الظاهرة, walking, prostrating, falling or to face, sujood, these are أفعال ظاهرة. Circumambulating and so on.
So thus ibadah, acts of worship, are therefore and
it could be statement utterances, meaning expression of creed. Could be acts of the heart, which include halal, faith, etc., and could be external acts. Ibadah only if they are based on a belief on the addressee, making him divine. That's it. Otherwise, it's not. There's something else. Something we have to analyze: is it shirk or not shirk? What is it? Otherwise, is it haram? It is halal. It is nice, ugly. That's another issue. Doesn't fall, nor should be studied under the title of ibadah. Okay. Like, for example, the ruku' in Japan, boiling to the level that your back is flat, exactly like in Salah. For the Japanese, it's greeting. If you see a Japanese doing that, and there may be injunction making that haram, doing that, you ask him, why doing that? Say, oh, this is respecting my friend. What's your friend? Is a human being like me, perishable and so on. He cannot even challenge the emperor and run away from him. So, finished. So he's not a deity with that respect. Is it a good type of respect? We can discuss that. But on Sharia ground and even taste and etiquette grounds. But it's not, it doesn't belong in the issue of Tawheed. Anyway, that's what we want. It's another issue. Whereas if it comes to the level of sujood, this looks more extreme. Even that is not relevant. What is the belief in the target? Because you will make sujood to someone. It may turn out he's actually not making the sujood to someone. He's taking this someone as a qibla who sujood for Allah. Where do you know that is a qibla? It's not for him, it's using him as a qibla. Where do you know? You have a refuted evidence from Allah? Otherwise, it's a bid'ah. But it's not ibadah. It may be haram, maybe kabira, maybe kufr, but it's not an issue of tawheed and shirk. It's another issue altogether. Yeah.
Thus, al-ibadah, acts of worship, are therefore aqwal wa al-zahira wa batina, external internal deeds, words, internal words and deeds intended for the purpose of manifesting hulul, abasement, and khudu, submission, some hearing, adara, obedience, or expressing ta'zim, veneration, and ihtiram, respect, or showing tawadud, affection, taqarrub, seeking nearness, and manifesting mahabba, love, or requesting the attainment of jalb al-manafi, benefits, and the repulsion of daf al-madar, harms, and showing khashya, or fakhr, poverty, and haja, need, towards one believed to be inherently deserving of that. That is, the one believed to possess some of the characteristics of uluhiyah, divinity, among them rububiyah, lordship, and supreme inherent siyada, sovereignty. The decisive criterion in all of this is the nature and content of belief and the essence of the conceptual content, not necessarily the terminologies and expressions employed. Yeah. Fatal errors, next subsection. The errors of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah and that of the misguided preacher Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and of those who imitated them from among the followers of the Wahhabi sect lies in their falling into the same mistake of the Khawarij, Al-Azraqiyah, and Najdat did, namely their failure to take i'tiqad into account in defining ibadah. They supposed it to be merely external and internal words and deeds having no connection to the belief of the one who speaks or acts. This is a grave lapse and a fatal error. Nor is that all. It is also an abominable innovation, for they made that novel and fabricated definition the very intent of the lawgiver, i.e., that it is a legitimate definition. This abominable innovation is in itself a major innovation, bida kubra, namely a bidat al-kufr, innovation of unbelief. If its inherent persists in it after the clarification has been understood and the proof established, he is a disbeliever and ultimately departs from Islam. We seek refuge in Allah from such ignominy.
I use such strong words to say that the Wahhabi claim they have no bid'ah. No, you have even the worst bid'ah. Some of them are bordering on kufr. No. So to refute that, I use the word bid'ah. So I have another definition of this, a clean one later. Obviously, this is only translation of a part of Tawheed, but inshallah in the future we'll have the full book reviewed again and translated. Inshallah soon, maybe next year it will be ready this way. The review will be finished and rearranged and so on. And then we do the translation according to the new model, block English, block Arabic, block English, block Arabic, block English. So minor editing in the future will not disturb the translation. Because minor editing will be restricted usually to certain blocks, certain sentences, precautionary addition, something between brackets, things like that. And then you just do it, and then even the automatic translator, you give the new text, that the old text, the old translation, and say, do it similar with the same style for the new Arabic text. And then just the new block is created in no time to whatever artificial intelligence using. They have become almost perfect now in translation. And that can be continued, so you don't need to stop editing small things and precautionary interlocating sentences because you're afraid that you need to retranslate the book. No. You just need to attend to that one block, which may be half page, 1 page, something like that, which can be done easily, done in the Word document, and then made a new PDF, and then you issue the new PDF as last version with its date clarified. And the people only have to check the old version out and keep this one, which is dated and so on. Clear, no problem.
Okay.
That's really a breakthrough in publishing and having the courage to do every small bit of review, immediately actualize it. Don't wait until all accumulated that you start writing from scratch. No, you don't need that, inshallah. Provided you have reached a certain level of good maturity, which is, inshallah, after the next editing, I think I barely can imagine any fundamental need to have revamping the order of the chapters or something, or subdivisions, or even switching over the blocks. But even switching over the blocks can be switched also in the translation easily. So if it is not going to the level of even abolishing chapters or shifting chapters, then we are safe. Then we can use this new method, and made easy by ChatGPT or by artificial intelligence, luckily. So 10 something which is controversial, like artificial intelligence, into a beneficial, at least in this area, and a beneficial tool and the grace from Allah. Obviously, it remains for other areas of things like creating jobs and so on. The difficult problems to see how to solve these problems with the artificial intelligence, the science of the book Tawheed. That's a heavy job for politician and thinker and so on, to prevent that it degenerates into an evil. But in that area, it's a grace. Provided you use it with hawk's eye. You don't trust it 100%. You have to review after it, because it can easily come sometimes with nonsense.
The principal error of the opponents of the opponents of the Wahhabi sect is either in their focus upon al-qasd, intention, and al-niyyah, motive, whereas these have no place in the definition of ibadah, their place being rather in the determination of reward and punishment, or in their reliance upon names and expressions, whereas what is obligatory is to consider solely the reality of the belief and the essence of the conceptual content, nothing besides. For example, one of them might object by saying the Mushrikeen made idols into gods, whereas the Muslims only believed in one God. And in their view, the prophets are merely prophets and the awliya are merely as such, nothing more. They did not make them into gods like the Mushrikeen did. The response to this is as follows. This is merely an attachment to names and expression without an inquiry into the substance of the belief. Naming the wali, for example, a wali, doesn't necessarily mean that some who are affiliated to Islam do not hold him a belief in concerning him a belief of kufr, which in reality renders him one taken as ilah besides Allah. Yes, if the discussion concerns the mushrikeen, then carrying their words and deeds upon kufr and shirk and kufr at the outset, at first glance.
At first glance, prima facie. But it could be otherwise. And for Muslim, take it to the opposite, prima facie, but it could be otherwise. Like, for example, if someone, we're not believing that Abdul Qadir Jilani is the divine or a prophet. He's only wali. Okay. What do you mean with wali here exactly for Abdul Qadir Jilani? Like if someone quotes to me that Pakistani woman living us with now, I think she's still alive, saying, yeah, we call Abdul Qadir and ask him to intermediate because we know, that's what she claims, and believe that Allah is afraid of Abdul Qadir and he has to comply. Finish. Abdul Qadir is then ilah. Game over. Calling him wali or horse, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter. Finish. Call him whatever you want. Is ilah. And showing respect or visiting his grave, looks us respecting, we're honoring the man. Honoring or not honoring, dishonoring is ibadah. Because your belief in him is to having aspects which make him divine. Red card out, you are a mushrik, you are a kafir. Finish, salam. Using the word honoring, I intend to honor him. But what meaning intending to honor him? Honor him as a wali, as a created human being, absolutely under complete control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, that's honoring. We may discuss is this style proper or not, visiting the grave and kissing it. Maybe, I will agree or disagree. Or you mean the honoring because you believe that he is, that Allah is afraid of him, like that stupid woman was saying. Then this is honoring is a ibadah. We're not discussing the expression of kissing the grave is irrelevant or irrelevant. It's irrelevant what it is. As an external act. What's relevant, it is ibadah. For someone who accepts Allah, not who Allah. Someone say, well, we believe he is Allah himself. That's again kufr. Because Allah cannot be become human or become incarnate or anything like that. Etc. So that's the way the discussion should go, step by step.
Yes, if the discussion concerns the mushrikeen, then carrying their words and deed upon the shirk and kufr at the outset and at first glance is a foundational rule until proofs arises to the contrary. Indeed, they usually declare explicitly with the words of ibadah and uluhiyah, divinity, though not always. For instance, one scarcely finds a secular Westerner who calls the people a Rabb or even an ilah, a god. Yet he grants them the right of tashri', legislation, thereby making them in effect an ilah and a Rabb besides Allah. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, then game is over then. Then you call it any name, parliament, sovereignty of the people, sovereignty of the king, just chuck it in the bin. It doesn't make any difference. The correct name would be the parliament is the Lord beside Allah, Lord in equality or in opposition to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and believing that you have to obey it based on that. This lordship is a aqidah of kufr because you adopted a deity beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this way, the obedience is done an act of ibadah. Adding kufr to the kufr, the initial kufr, or the shirk, which is expressed in the creed itself. So the creed itself is shirk. And the acts are then classified as ibadah and making multiple, another layer on kufr on top of another layer.
Such a person is thus mushrik kafir, his shirk being shirk al-kufr, polytheism of unbelief. Wholly contrary to Islam, nullifying his deeds in their entirety, past and future, and expelling them from the millah, anyone who had previously been a Muslim among its people. Equally obligatory is to carry what appears from those affiliated to Islam of actions that may be thought to be ibadah, directed to other than Allah as having been performed without a belief in uluhiyah in respect of the one to whom they are directed.
So if we see a Muslim making sujood to a grave, for example, we should assume at the beginning that he is a stupid man doing an act that should not be done, but he doesn't believe that the one in the grave or the grave is having any divine aspects. It just is a great abid, a great zahid, a great scholar, and he deserves respect and honoration. That's no problem. But the way he expressed it is stupid and maybe wrong, maybe haram in Sharia. That's another study. There's no problem. It's worthy of study, but not in the book of Tawheed or these books. Maybe a book of fiqh, books of manners, shama'il, yeah, maybe, but not in Tawheed. There's not an issue of Tawheed and shirk. Just keep it at the side. If it's happening for Muslim. But if you see a Hindu doing that, then we have to conclude there's some kind of divinity behind that. And most of the time, they believe in their awliya and that they are divine somehow by ascension into the rank of divinity. They did so much practice, thousands of years standing on one feet until they ascended to the level of divinity. How is that possible? Because they have a magic worldview. The world for them is a magic, is irrational world. So it's very well possible that you are originally created, but you just need to have sufficient mental control that you stand on your own feet for 1,000 years in rain and snow and so on, and then you ascend to divinity. But the same was for you, because you look to the universe and the reality as being rational. There's an absolute reason. We discussed that yesterday, absolute reason behind that in the question and answer. But they don't. The universe is not rational, it's magic.
Yeah, I've heard some Sufis have something similar, but obviously without the divinity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're acquiring certain powers. I think they've watched too much Harry Potter. Okay. Next, equally obligatory is to carry what appears from those affiliated to Islam of actions.
It could be shirk, like the Sufi of Hindus and so on, and Faqir and so on. Definitely it's shirk there, because we know the background creed. So we can assume, say first, it's some kind of shirk there, and we need to pick it up almost with surgical operation. But in the case of Muslim, we assume it is not there. And if it is there really, then we have to, by digging up and do like forensic examination. Not just haphazard, like so if he is regarding him as a deity, he is a kafir.
Okay. So last paragraph of this section. Equally obligatory is to carry what appears from those affiliated to Islam of actions that may be thought to be ibadah directed to other than Allah as having been performed without a belief in uluhiyah in respect of the one to whom they are directed, at the outset and at first glance, until proof arises to the contrary. Okay, next paragraph. Secondly, that the mushrikeen believe those aliha, gods, to be mustahiqun lil ibadah, deserving of worship, whereas the Muslims did not believe that any of those through whom they seek tawassul, necessary mediation, is deserving of even the least act of ibadah. In their view, none is deserving of ibadah except Allah alone, exalted and glorified. And the response to this is that ilah, deity, is the one mustahiq lil ibadah, deserving of worship. Thus the statement, the mushrikeen believe these aliha, gods, to be mustahiq lil ibadah, deserving of worship, is a case of redundancy, of no benefit, like saying the gods are gods or water is water. It is a correct utterance but devoid of substance. It's basically implicit. Therefore, it is
circularity. So we don't believe that's mustahiq al-ibadah. But we believe mustahiq al-ibadah. What is mustahiq al-ibadah must be with certain attributes. So we go back to the certain attributes. What the attributes making them properly divine, and that's mustahiq al-ibadah. Is the creed of the one doing these acts is like that, based on such a belief? Then his claim, I don't believe that mustahiqun is nonsense. Just going, he's just confused. He doesn't express himself properly. That doesn't help claiming, I don't believe it's mustahiq al-ibadah. It doesn't matter what you believe mustahiq as well. What do you believe in him intrinsically? Is he have divine attributes? Then it is a divinity, and your acts are act of ibadah. Even if called, I don't believe they are worthy of it. This is nonsense. That's the reason I say the translation of shahada, like you find by many people now. I will witness that there's no deity worth of worship. The moment you worth of worship, you negate the shahada, you annihilated it. There's no deity except Allah, period. No deity whatsoever, meaning no entity which has attributes which make it divine, at least in some aspects. None of that exists in reality. Maybe in the imagination of certain people, but that exists in reality. Absolutely not. Because based on that, then the entity maybe will be automatically worthy of worship. For example, what of the jinn? Fearing them is an act of ibadah. Despite your belief that they're evil and you hate them, you don't need to be loved. It's enough that in that case, for jinn running away from Allah will cause you to fear and maybe offer sacrifices to keep them at bay. And you believe you can keep them at bay. Why? Because if you supplicate to Allah to protect from them, He cannot prevent. If you just run away, that's shirk. Finish. Over. You call it ibadah, you call it fear, you call it appeasement and getting rid of them like throwing meat to a raging lion. Throwing meat to a raging lion so you get busy and you can go up the tree. It's not ibadah because you don't believe the lion is divine. But he's raging now and can attack me and eat me physically. That's visible, clearly. And there's no way I have in my mind that Allah will not be able to stop him. But Allah's liberty is running the universe in a supreme way. If I supplicate to him, he may decide he will accept give my supplication the necessary reward by allowing me to be eaten by the lion, for example, and become shaheed and have double shahada, for example. That's the possible divine response. But I do believe that Allah can stop him. If I believe that Allah is unable to stop him, red card out, that's shirk, and your act is act of ibadah, throwing the piece of meat. Maybe the example of lion clarify things further. So it depends why you are doing that and what I believe in the entity. In that case, it's natural to accept the lion is the danger and throwing meat to him will get busy with it. That's established by the nature of the universe. But no way it entails that it's established that it is outside the realm of Allah's control. Allah can very well stop him in his track with all kinds of means. Or even does not stop him there, but say, my servant, I accept your dua, asking me because you believe I'm the ultimate sovereign, but why the situation of the universe does not allow to accept now for whatever reason I know you don't know. But for that, the acceptance of the dua is expressed in form that you become shaheed and get a reward much better than being saved from the life. Much better, billion times better. Or protect you from a few events coming today, a war to be erupted tomorrow, which will be such a fitna that you may turn to a kafir. So I blocked that in the way. What do you want more than that? Welcome, lion. Come and eat me. That should be your response. That's it. Then all what you do to the lion is not ibadah. And the other one is ibadah. Even the throwing, offering a chicken or offering a sheep to a jinn because you believe that's the only way to keep at bay. No way, no other way, because they can outrun Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now we are in the domain of kufr and shirk and ibadah. Okay, this is a very primitive example that clarifies the issue. It should clarify the issue clearly. That's the way to go.
Continue the text. Therefore, it is necessary to specify the particular attributes that render one who possesses them as an ilah besides Allah, and then the actions directed towards him thereby constitute ibadah. And perhaps here lies that hidden and pernicious circularity. The ilah, deity, is the ma'bud, object of worship, and ibadah, worship, is everything that is directed towards the ilah. Thirdly, that the mushrikeen in fact worship these alihah, as the Exalted has said, reporting from them, we only worship them because they bring us nearer to Allah, and that's 39.3. Whereas the Muslims, in their tawassul, intercessory mediation by means of the prophets and the salihin, the righteous, fundamentally did not worship them. And the response to this is once again that hidden circularity. For we cannot know concerning those actions with which some of those affiliated with Islam directed towards the prophets and the righteous, are they ibadah or not? Merely naming them tawassul, intercessory mediation, does not resolve the problem. This is reliance upon names and expressions alone, and that is not permissible. There is no escape, therefore, but to adopt a sound definition of ibadah, free of circularity and contradiction. As for the vicious circle of statements that are either contradictory or mere redundancy, it is of no benefit and yields no result. Following this comes the notion that the mushrikeen intended by their ibadah of asnam, the idols, to seek taqreeb, nearness to Allah, exalted is He. As for the Muslims, they did not intend by their tawassul, intercessory mediation, through the prophets and others to seek taqreeb to Allah, for taqreeb to Allah is only attained through ibadah. Hence, Allah exalted is He said, reporting from the mushrik, we only worship them because they bring us nearer to Allah. Rather, the Muslims intended tabarruk, seeking blessing, and istishfa, seeking intercession through them, and tabarruk, seeking blessings by means of a thing that is not the same as seeking taqreeb by it, as is clear.
The prayer we say, which is not an answer, it doesn't solve the problem. Yeah.
The response, this is not clarified unless we first establish that tawassul, intercessory mediation, is not ibadah. This, however, requires that we define ibadah with a correct definition, free of circularity and contradiction. For if the one engaging in tawassul were to believe that the one through whom he seeks mediation or the one through whom he seeks intercession intercedes without the need of permission, or that he has with Allah an intercession which cannot be refused, or that he can grant protection against Allah, or that he can escape from the grasp of Allah, or that he can render Allah incapable by flight, then he has made himself a nid, a rival, a peer, in a rank equivalent to Allah, even if only in that particular respect. He has thereby taken him as an ilah besides Allah. By this mere belief, he is a mushrik kafir, and his tawassul is then ibadah of other than Allah. It is therefore an additional increase in shirk and kufr. So next section, blunders. In any case, Sayyid al-Alama Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Amir al-Sana'ani, who died in 1768 CE, may Allah have mercy upon him, who was a contemporary of Miao, raised an objection regarding his ruling.
What's the death day?
1768.
Okay, yeah, that's contemporary. I thought it was 15. No, 15 would be much ancient. No,
Yeah.
17.
So he's a contemporary of Miao.
Yeah.
Raised an objection regarding his ruling on those whom he called al-Quburiyun, the grave worshippers, namely that they had fallen into al-Shirk al-Akbar, major shirk, the shirk of unbelief, and thus exited from the fold of Islam. As-Sana'ani decisively rejected this, classifying them instead among the sinful people of Islam, for in his view they had fallen only into shirk al-Asghar, minor shirk, as is found in al-Fath al-Bani min Fatawa al-Imam al-Shawkani. Now this is from the book. What concerns us here is this: if it should be hidden from some of the people of knowledge that what we have mentioned and established regarding those who hold beliefs about the dead due to some causes of obscurity previously noted, and he does not comprehend what we have presented of the Quranic and rational demonstrative proofs, then it is necessary to ask him what is al-shirk. If he replies, it is to take along with Allah another, just as the people of Jahiliyyah took al-Islam, the gods as the idols as gods along with Allah, exalted is He, then say to him, and what did Jahiliyyah do for those asnam which they took, such that they became mushrikeen? If he replies, they venerated them, offered sacrifices to them, istighatha, sought aid through them, called upon them in times of need, slaughtered sacrificial animals for them, and other such acts included under the designation of ibadah, then say to him, for what reason did they do such acts for them? If he replies, because they believe them to be the Khaliq, creator, Razik, provider, Muhyi, giver of life, or Mumit, causer of death, then recite to him what we have already presented to you of the Quranic proofs, declaring explicitly that they confess that Allah alone is the Khaliq, Razik, Muhyi, and Mumit, and that they only worship them to bring them nearer to Allah. They said they are our intercessors with Allah. They did not worship them for any reason other than that. In such a case, he will agree with you inevitably if he believes that the speech of Allah is true. And after he agrees with you, explain to him that those who held beliefs concerning the graves have done those very acts, or some of them, in the manner that we have established and reiterated in this treatise. then if there remains in him any remnant of fairness or any glimmer of knowledge and any portion of reason, he will inevitably agree with you. The obscurity will be removed from him, the clouds of heedlessness will dissipate from his heart, and he will confess that he was veiled from the meaning of At-Tawheed, which is with which the Sunnah and book came. Also from the same work, among the doubts that presented, let me just check something. Among the doubts that presented themselves to some of the people of knowledge is what Sayyid Al-Allama Muhammad ibn Ismail Al-Amir, may Allah be pleased with him, asserted in his commentary on the verse in which he begins, I have retracted from the poem which I composed concerning the Najdi. For he said, the kufr of these who hold beliefs concerning that is kufr amali, practical unbelief, not kufr juhudiyya, unbelief of denial. He then cited what has been reported concerning the kufr of the one who abandons the prayer, as occurs in the sound hadith, and the kufr of the one who abandons the pilgrimage, in the saying of the exalted, those who rejected this should know that Allah has no need of anyone. And that's Surah Baqarah 97. Surah Al-Imran. Then he commented, its clarification is that kufr is of two kinds, kufr amal, practical unbelief, and kufr juhud wa inad, unbelief of denial and obstinacy. Kufr juhud is that one rejects what he knows the messenger has brought from Allah out of denial and obstinacy. And this kind of kufr opposes iman in every respect. As for kufr amal, practical unbelief, it is of two types, one that contradicts iman and one that does not. He then transmitted the words of Ibn al-Qayyim concerning this matter. Then a Sayyid mentioned said, I say, and among this, that is kufr amali, is the one who calls upon the awliya, saints, and invokes them in times of stress, and circumambulates around their graves and kisses their walls and makes vows to them of part of his wealth, for this is kufr amali, not itiqadi, doctrinal unbelief. For he believes in Allah, his messenger, and but Satan has adorned for him the belief that these righteous servants of Allah benefit, intercede, and cause harms, and so they believe that, just as the people of Jahiliyyah believe that concerning the idols. But these affirm the Tawheed of Allah, not making the awliya into aliha, gods, as the unbelievers said in the denial of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, when he called them to the word of Tawheed. How can he claim that all gods are but one God? What an astonishing thing to claim. That's from Surah 38:5. For those disbelievers truly made partners for Allah and said in the Talbiyah, لبيك لا شريك لك إلا شاركا هو لك تملكه وما ملك. Here we are, you have no partner except a partner who belongs to you. You own him and what he owns. Thus, they affirmed for the idols partnership with the Lord of creation, even though their misguided phraseology implied that he has no partner. For if he owns that partner and what he owns, then he is not a partner of the exalted, but a mere possession. Hence, the idol worshippers who made andad, peers, rivals for Allah, and took partners besides him, and at times call them intercessors to bring them near to Allah, are in contrast to the ignorant Muslims, who believe concerning their awliya in benefit and harm. For they confess Allah's oneness, affirming his sole uluhiyah, and they believed in his messengers, and they did in their veneration of the awliya is thus kufr amali, not itiqadi. Therefore it is obligatory to admonish them, to make them aware of their ignorance, and to restrain them even by means of ta'dir, disciplinary punishment, just as we have been commanded to apply the had penalties for the fornicator, the wine drinker, and the thief, though these being of the people of practical unbelief, to the point where he said, these are all prohibited abominations from the practices of Jahiliyyah and forms of kufr amali, and it is established that this ummah engages in matters from the practice of Jahiliyyah, which are kufr amali, such as in the hadith, 4 things in my ummah are from the affairs of Jahiliyyah, which they will not abandon: boasting of lineages, disparaging pedigrees, seeking rain by the stars, and waiting for the dead. This was related by Muslim in his Sahih from hadith of Abu Malik al-Ashari, These are forms of kufr amali which do not expel the ummah from the millah. Rather, despite their committing these pagan traits, he attributed them to himself, saying, "From my ummah." If you should say, the people of Jahiliyyah would say concerning their asnam that they bring us nearer to Allah, just as the Quburiyun, grave worshippers, venerators, say, these are our intercessors with Allah, as the Quburiyun declare. I reply, it is not the same. For the Quburiyun affirm at-Tawheed, declaring that there is no ilah, deity, but him. Even were his neck struck, he would not say otherwise. He holds that the wali, by virtue of his obedience to Allah, has attained thereby a station of honor before him, such that his intercession is accepted and his benefit hoped for, not that he is an ilah alongside Allah. In contrast, the pagan idolaters refused to utter La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah, even until his neck was struck, claiming that his idol is an ilah with Allah and calling it a Rabb and an ilah God. Yusuf alayhi salam said, fellow prisoners, would many diverse gods be better than Allah, the one, the all-powerful? No, indeed. And that's 1239. He named them Arbab, lords, because they themselves called them thus. Likewise, Al-Khalil, Abraham said, this is my Lord. And that's 678. In 3 verses, interrogatively reproaching them, speaking in their idiom, because they call the celestial bodies Arbab. They also said, how can he claim that all the gods are but one? And the people of Abraham said, who has done this to our gods? Was it you, Abraham? Who did this to our gods? And so that's 38:5 and 21:59, 62. Abraham said, how can you choose false gods instead of one true God? That's 37:86. From this, it is known that the kuffar did not affirm Tawheed al-Uluhiyah nor Tawheed al-Rububiyah, as some have mistakenly supposed from his words. This is acknowledgement of Tawheed al-Khaliqiyah, the oneness of creatorship, and al-Raziqiyah, the oneness of provision, and the like. Clearly not acknowledgement of Tawheed al-Aliha, the oneness of divinity, for they made their idols awthan, arbab, lords, as you have seen. Thus, this pagan kufr is kufr i'tiqad, and from it necessarily flows kufr amal. This is in contrast to one who believes in concerning the awliya in benefit and harm, while affirming Allah's tawheed, believing in him, his messenger, and the last day. This is kufr amal, practical unbelief. This then is a precise clarification and elucidation of what is the truth without excess or deficiency. And here ends the words of the aforementioned As-Sayyid, may Allah have mercy upon him. And that's all from that's just from that book. Okay, so now your commentary. So this is your response and analysis. In the light of the above, I would argue that the words of a Sayyid al-Alama Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Amir, may Allah have mercy upon him, are generally sound, albeit with some notable exceptions. Foremost, he was not granted success in perceiving the true operative cause of the difference in ruling between the two cases, namely the difference in the essence of the belief and the fundamental divergence in conceptual content. For the people of Jahiliyyah believed concerning their ilah certain matters which rendered them aliha and arbab besides Allah. A small portion of this might have been related to al-Khaliqiyah and al-Raziqiyah and the like, but much of it concerned other important and essential matters beyond these. Among the most significant being their supposed constitution stemming from a divine genus or divine lineage. We have already given in detail a full exposition of most of this. This is what matters, and this is the crux of the matter. It is not their naming of these objects of worship as ilah, aliha, or arbab, nor their acknowledgement of partnership with Allah, as in the wording of the pagan talbiyah. Through these names and expressions, though these names and expressions are usually, and in most cases, though not necessarily strong indications of the presence of such unbelieving, though these names and expressions are usually, and in most cases, though not necessarily strong indications of the presence of such unbelieving beliefs. As for the belief of those affiliated to Islam concerning those among the dead or the awliya, whom they called upon, it is fundamentally different, or so it ought to be presumed of them at first glance. What passes upon their tongues of names and expressions suggests that their beliefs are not necessarily unbelieving beliefs, even if it is possible that in some rare circumstances they might be so, which we pray to Allah are indeed rare. Thus, a decisive factor is the essence of the belief and the conceptual content, not names and designations, nor merely affiliation to Islam or verbal utterance of the two testimonies. Secondly, he erred in classifying some of the acts performed by those affiliated to Islam as in their entirety kufr amali, practical unbelief, or kufr asghar, minor unbelief, without consideration of the conceptual and doctrinal content, and without consideration of the ahkam shari'. For some of these may not constitute kufr, whether practical or doctrinal at all, but are merely acts of disobedience or even only disliked acts. And some of them, though rare and exceptional, may indeed constitute kufr, expelling from the millah. As for al-kufr al-asghar, minor unbelief, as well as al-shirk al-asghar, minor polytheism, these are only classifications given by the Islamic lawgiver and nothing else. But the designation may be applied designation may be applied to matters that are in fact minor sins as well, as will be demonstrated in the chapters on ethics and subsidiary matters. So, for example, kibr, in it, kibr is it's been so in other words, Allah has to define what these minor shirk would be, not a classification that has been made to
give you that name to things which are originally in the original language not shirk.
Meanwhile, certain grave and destructive major sins, which appropriate ashirk al-akbar, major polytheism, and al-kufr, that expels one from millah in their degree of sin, such as consuming the wealth of the orphan unjustly, false testimony, and the false oath, have not been named by the lawgiver as shirk or kufr, even if he has made them comparable to shirk in sin and evil. Then the author of Al-Fath al-Rabbani attempted to reply to a Sayyid al-Allama Muhammad bin Ismail al-Amir, may Allah be pleased upon him, by saying,
Al-Amir is the father, Amir al-San'ani. That's it. Because he was, I think, a ruler of Sana'a. But I think the translator thought Al-Amir is a name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Muhammad Ismail al-San'ani is enough. Okay.
So this is from his work. I say this statement is in precise analysis, is not a thorough clarification, but rather a contradictory and inconsistent discourse. Its explanation is that there is no doubt that kufr is divided into kufr itiqad, unbelief of belief, and kufr amal, unbelief of action. But the claim that what those who hold beliefs concerning that do is kufr amal, unbelief of action, is utterly corrupt. For he, al-Amir, mentioned in this inquiry that the kufr of the one who believes concerning the awliya is kufr amal, practical unbelief, and this is astonishing. How can one say the kufr of one who believes concerning awliya and then call this itiqad, and yet afterwards say it is kufr amal?
Yes, they don't know how to correct themselves. And let me actually remind that in quoting Ibn Abdul Wahhab, I think earlier in the book of San'ani or Shawkani, when he says the ayahs of if you ask him who created this, who did this, which shows that Mushrikeen did not have shirk in rububiyyah. We have refuted that in the chapter for that completely. This is nonsense. One of the major mistakes of Ibn Taymiyyah, and followed and sharpened by Ibn Abdul Wahhab. That's not true. The ayah does not imply that. But because they read it in bits and pieces, do not connect them with the context, nor think about it in an analytical way, they ended in this catastrophic mistake. This blatant mistake. That's not true. So it is error on top of error, and circular arguments, hidden circularity, and ultimately you end in an absolute confused and disparate situation. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, carry on.
How can one say the kufr of one who believes concerning the awliya and then call this itiqad, yet afterwards say it is kufr amal, practical unbelief? Is this not sheer contradiction and pure inconsistency?
Yeah.
Observe how he mentioned at the beginning of the inquiry that everyone who calls upon the awliya, invokes them in times of distress, circumambulating their graves, kisses their walls, and makes vows to them from his wealth, is committing kufr al-amal. Kufr amal. But I ask, what drives him to such dua, istighatha, seeking of aid, kissing of the walls, and making of vows? Is it merely play and frivolity without any beliefs? Such a thing would only be done by a madman, or is the cause that which impels him belief in the dead? How can this not be kufr, i'tiqad, doctrinal belief, without which none of these actions would have ever been performed?
Mm.
Then observe how he himself admitted, after having ruled that this kufr is kufr amal and not kufr i'tiqad, by saying, but Satan has adorned from them that these are righteous servants of Allah who benefit and intercede. Thus he, Al-Amir Sanani, acknowledged this belief and excused them by saying it was belief of ignorance, just as the people of Jahiliyyah held concerning the idols. Consider how he ruled that this is kufr i'tiqad, like the kufr of the people of Jahiliyyah, affirming the belief and then excusing it as a belief of ignorance. And what benefit is there in its belief, in its being a belief of ignorance? For the various sects of unbelief and all the people of shirk were only driven to unbelief, rejection of the truth, and a persistence upon falsehood by a belief held in ignorance. Can anyone say that the utterance of the Kalimat al-Tawheed alone, without consideration of the actions that contradict it, and without regard for the beliefs from which those actions concerning the dead arise suffice? Such a consideration should not be relied upon or occupied with. For Allah, exalted is He, only looks to the hearts and to what actions proceed therefrom as a consequence of belief, not to mere words. Otherwise, there would be no distinction between the believer and the hypocrite. And that's from that book. Okay, now this is your response. I would argue that there is a strong rejoinder. Formally speaking, wherein the author of Al-Fath al-Rabbani succeeding in twisting the arm of Sayyid al-Alama Muhammad ibn
Because
Ismail al-Amir.
the statements are contradictory and not clean, and circularity is hidden there. So it can be easily put in the corner, which happened by the new edition, inshallah, this will be separated better and made in smaller blocks, bit by bit, and clarified better, and maybe even abolished, and relying on the discussion area should have said the things much better if it's rearranged slightly better, inshallah. But here it's still not bad. It's still not bad. So the objection of Muhammad Ismail al-Amir al-Sanani to declaring the people of Islam with the graves and so on, that is kufr asghar or shirk amali, or simply does not save the day, does not bring us closer to the reality if they are still within the fold of Islam or outside of Islam, if that's shirk and ibadah or not. Because the definition of ibadah is confused, the definition of shirk is confused, and also rububiyyah, uluhiyyah, and so on is misdefined. So you never find anyway. You end here, go circular, go back, and never end anywhere.
And just continue your statement. So I would argue that it's a strong rejoinder. Formally speaking, wherein the author of Al-Fath al-Rabbani succeeded in twisting the arm of Sayyid al-Alama Muhammad Ismail al-Amir al-Sanani, and mercy upon him, calling him to a measure of contradiction. For those who are affiliated to Islam did not call upon the awliya, except that they necessarily possessed a certain belief, as appeared clearly from his words. What drives him to such application and seeking of aid? Moreover, Ash-Shawkani did well in clarifying that ignorance, even if it may perhaps excuse from ultimate accountability in the hereafter, does not alter the reality of things in themselves. A mushrik remains a mushrik, even if we were to suppose that he is excused by ignorance or by non-reception of the message. And superstition remains superstition, even if one supposes on account of some doubt or misconception that has occurred to him that is a truth in conformity with reality. Yet the argument of the author of Al-Fath al-Rabbani must inevitably turn against him, for he did not perceive that there are idolatrous beliefs entailing disbelief, and others which are not so, even if they are perhaps false. He supposed that the matter was merely some kind of belief any i'tiqad concerning the attainment of benefit or the repulsion of harm and the like,
Yeah,
rather
that
than
is
the type of
probably.
belief. It's
They
subject and
must have
context.
they must some belief with the Ahmad. He's true. But which belief is that what we have to be concerned about, which is shirk type? He doesn't clarify, because if he clarify, all his Wahhabi theory will fly away. That's it. So that's it. So if he took Muhammad bin Ismail al-San'ani and twisted his arm, al-San'ani, if he would have been savvy enough and clear, but he did not do, unfortunately, would have to come back and say, yeah, there's a belief, but what's the belief you have attributed them to? Which kind? Is it kind of shirk type or not? But this distinction is far away from al-San'ani's mind. It was not crystallized properly. Because anytime they want to crystallize that somehow or someone, they go again in circularity. So this really is the key. So in the next edition, inshallah, we will make it sure that we clarify that yearly, and because I prefer at the time to start what they claim and then refute it and extract the final result. I think it's better to say we will prove this and this, but for the time being, take it as an assumption, as a hypothesis to be proven. This way, the people are prepared to absorb things in that direction, and provided that in you building the proof, you do not commit a circularity. Yeah, that's a critical way, but it seems to educationally, the second way is starting with a final conclusion stated, and then start proving it bit by bit. And there's one danger there, that the conclusion is worked in the proof. So you have to be watching like hell for this. If you avoid that and manage it, then you have a correct education in a better way. The other way is not to make the final statement. You start with the other side are saying, show the refutation bit by bit, and extract the final result. But this will be lengthy and very difficult, possibly ending with a bit of difficulty in absorption and comprehension. But safer from the issue of circularity in making the argument. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of what was the most educationally and clarificational approach, which have the same effect. The other one, starting with the what is the, like I said, the correct definition of ilah is this and this and this, and this comes from this and this and this and this, and refuse the point of view of Wahhabi of this and this and this, based on this and this and this. But in that chain of argument, the final conclusion, which we are proven, putting down an assumption and developing, should not be worked in secret from the back door. That will be circularity. That will be a false proof. Will be a wrong proof. And this is quite difficult, but if the writer, hopefully I am one of these, is sufficiently alert, this will not happen. And the new proof is watertight and correct. And the one following you is having it easier because he knows what is need to be proven. This is also the way to go when you make the so-called reductio ad absurdum, proof by contradiction. You start with the result, assume it is true, and then show there is a contradiction. There it is no problem. There cannot be any circularity. That's a nice way. But here, you start with the final result, but you prove that it's true, not false. And this is awfully difficult because of the issue of possibly that you work in something which is contained the final result. So you take the final result, put it back, and go like this. And that will be catastrophic. That renders the proof being circular or not producing anything. It's a fake proof. Avoiding that and formulating it clear and be alert at every step and reminding of that to the reader is the way to go. And inshallah, we have this capability, as many people do not have.
Continue with the text. And we have already established that the mere belief that such and such causes benefit or harm has nothing to do with kufr and shirk, nor with shirk and tawheed. Otherwise, every person who believes that his donkey or his car is useful and beneficial will be declared a mushrik and kafir. Yet these disputants will hasten to say this is not self-evidently the kind of benefit and harm we mean. We then reply, Well said, excellent and just. Then show us the correct and precise distinction between
Exactly.
every person's belief in the benefit of a car or a donkey or a bundle of wood, and the belief of the mushrikeen of the Quraysh in the benefit of Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat. The
Exactly.
author of Fatah Rabbani continued his discussion of Sayyid al-Alam Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Amir al-Sanani, may Allah have mercy upon him, citing statements of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, which indicate that he ruled those whom he called al-Quburiyun, the venerators of worship or worshippers of graves, to be guilty of shirk al-Akbar, contrary to what Imam al-Sanani may have supposed of Ibn al-Qayyim's words. But all of this, by the praise of Allah, does not concern us. For whether Ibn al-Qayyim said such a thing, or whether the understanding of Imam Sanani or of his words were the correct ones, since when have the statements of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim become authoritative divine texts? The manifest truth by which we worship Allah is what we have already established with decisive proofs through certain demonstrative arguments, together with the refutation of the words of the opponents after having first clarified them with precision. Indeed, by the grace of Allah, we have even refined their statements and reformulated them better than they themselves expressed. Then Allah bestowed His favor and opened the way for their refutation, statement by statement. All of this is by the bounty of Allah and His grace, and by the blessing of the noble Quran when it is reflected upon with true reflection. So that ends this chapter. We are now on to the final chapter, which is a few pages.
Mhm.
Okay, so page 375, chapter 15. The Wahhabi sect's distortion of the concept of worship. In conclusion, to this present volume, we emphasize the fact that claiming certain acts, considered merely as such, deserve to be called ibadah regardless of the perception or belief that precedes or accompanies them regarding the maf'ul bihi, the direct object of the action, or the maf'ul li ajlihi, the intended purpose behind it, is not only a serious and deadly mistake, but also a heinous innovation. Indeed, it is a religious ordinance, that which Allah did not permit, and a great misguidance. All of this has resulted in catastrophic and disastrous consequences. So, as the object of the action, okay. So, is this to do with Ma'bud and Ilah? Okay.
Continue. Let's clarify. Yeah.
Firstly, this has resulted in attributing the labels of shirk and kufr to many Muslims and claiming that they have departed from the creed and they have severed ties with Islam. Thereupon, hatred was declared against them. The sword was unsheathed upon them. They started fighting them and made their blood and wealth lawful. This is a great evil and a grave flaw that makes its perpetrator not only one of the heretic Khawarij, but also the worst type and the most bloodthirsty of them, the Azraqiyah and the Najdiyah, who killed the people of Islam and spared the mushrikeen, or at the very least opposed the people of Islam and formed bonds with the mushrikeen. Indeed, this is what manifested by the majority of states, formations, tribes, and groups that have adopted this malicious Wahhabi doctrine. Secondly, this has also resulted...
And in the future, like the first Saudi state, the first Daesh, and the so-called Daesh of our time, in Syria, which ought to be called the second Daesh. We will add that, inshallah, later. Inshallah.
You know, honestly, the more I see current events, the more I appreciate. I don't know how strong the hadith is when the Dajjal comes and the Khawarij will ally with him.
Yeah.
Right now, the fact that these Al Saud and his Munafiq UAEs,
because the definition and basic understanding is faulty, so a deceiver, the meaning of the Dajjal is deceiving. It's something mixing light and so he's not outright vicious kafir. No, he starts like supporting Islam and calling for the whole Islam, calling for peace, and develop from there. So he can deceive them and they join him. And then he sucks them in and then they regard him as the greatest alim of his time and so on, and follow him all the way into the open and irrefutable kufr. Carry on.
Okay, you carry on. So, secondly, this has also resulted in the distortion of the concept of ibadah until it was turned into a collection of mere rituals that are almost devoid of any substance, which paved the way for absurd, obsessive discussions revolving around graves, shrines, and saints. Unsurprisingly, Al-Albani, for instance, would refer to the state of Al-Saud as a state of Tawheed in the same cassette in which he severely criticized it for bringing the American forces into the fight Iraq during the Kuwait crisis and the first Gulf War in 1901. According to him, it remains the state of Tawheed while it allies with the disbelievers and fights under their banner in a devastating and decisive war against Islam. Indeed, this is an act of disbelief, which its perpetrator becomes an apostate and disbeliever if the impediments to takfir are absent, along with other acts of belief, such as changing the divine laws and showing blatant disbelief, as seen in Saudi Dar'iyah system, nationality laws, that evil, racist, blasphemous, and cursed system. Furthermore, permitting usury by licensing banks who deal in this, and membership in aggressive and anti-Islamic international organizations such as the United Nations. So just to clarify, the United Nations in its charter has things that contradict Islam from the creed. That's why you
we have a lot of that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
With the title Demolish the United Nations. Yeah.
Then we found
previous article by Sheikh Taqi about this point. So this should not be an issue of controversy if someone reads it carefully. That's where they should have focused, but instead showing about the graves and shrines.
Yeah, the UN Charter of Human Rights negates us completely. The entire concept of marriage between a believer and non-believers.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, so if anyone's not clear on that. Then we found him naming it as such in his letter entitled Tadir As-Sajid min Ittikhadh Al-Qubur Masajid, where he states, at the time I was amazed at how this idolatrous phenomenon had remained until the era of the state of Tawheed. Why did he call it the state of Tawheed, and how did it deserve this great honor? In his view, because there are no constructed graves and monumental shrines in Saudi Arabia, just like that with all absurdity, foolishness, insignificance, and shallow thinking. Glory to be Allah, this is a great slander. Thirdly, this has resulted in the most heinous of them from a doctrinal and intellectual perspective, even if it does not appear easily in practice, which is claiming that Allah may Majesty be glorified was an ilah god in pre-eternity, but rather became an ilah after he was worshipped, i.e. after he found someone to worship him. This is sufficient as an act of kufr. It is indeed the worst type of it. Yes, people will hasten to say, Allah forbid, rather he is an ilah, eternal and forever, that is to say, he is the one deserving of worship of anyone capable of worship, for he is himself distinguished by the attributes of Kamal, perfection, Jamal, beauty, and Jalal, majesty. Accordingly, we say, despite the defects, objections, and dangers embedded in this lame definition of the ilah, which we have already mentioned in the previous volume of this series, we shall accept it from you. Rather, we say, no problem, well done. Indeed, it is so. But based upon that, then define for us the ibadat, acts of worship. Are they not by necessity and intuitive knowledge every act intended to glorify Allah or seek closeness to him? For he is in himself deserving of them. That is based on the doer's belief that Allah in himself is deserving of those acts by virtue of his attributes and power. So how did you reduce it to a restricted list of acts? Be that prostration, bowing, lighting candles, offering sacrifices, slaughtering sacrificial animals, fulfilling vows, etc., as abstract actions, not preceded by this specific belief. Perhaps some people would rush to argue that rather because Allah allowed it only for himself and prohibited it to others, based on that we call it ibadah and consider the one who performs it for other than him a mushrik and kafir. Therefore, in reply we say, this reflects your ignorance. Or that was an outright fabrication, because we have proven, in the case of prostration, for example, that Allah did not classify it as an ibadah. It was performed for other than him. nor did he consider anyone who did so a kafir. He commanded his angels who glorify him with an uncompromising order that left no room for leniency. And when Iblis refused, acted arrogantly, and rejected the command, he cursed and expelled him. Thus, by that rejection due to his ego and arrogance, he became one of the mushrikeen and kafirin. It is considered forbidden or merely disliked, according to some jurists, in this final divine law, and it is neither considered shirk nor kufr unless it is accompanied by a belief that entails kufr. You legislate according to your whims and give things names you have invented for which Allah has never authorized. Besides, your statements are contradictory, and you are falling into an evident circular cause at some points and a hidden circular cause at others. It comes as no surprise then that the frenzied campaigns of the agents of Al-Saud against Taliban, when their master America ordered them to do so, focused on the issue of shrines and graves, and the defense offered by the well-meaning and naive youth was limited to providing evidence that they were striving to demolish them to the best of their ability. As for the non-Islamic tribal customs which Taliban remain silent about out of ignorance or inability, if we think well of them, and as for the blind imitation and jurisprudence stagnation to the interpretations, analogies, jurist sayings from the age of decline, which reach the level of obscurantism, and as for the extremism and wrongful practices in which the Taliban were involved, which distorted the pure image of Islam, and as for the oppression and confiscation of people's legitimate rights. This is not a matter for research and discussion, nor should Taliban be criticized, denounced, or advised to correct it. And why not? Isn't the shirk of graves the greatest calamities and the greatest disasters that should be focused on and addressed before anything else? Indeed, perhaps it is the only flaw, as it seems to be in the wild and sick imagination of these pure misguided claimants of Salafism, the so-called people of the true Aqidah, as they claim. It also comes as no surprise to hear one of the Imams of the Wahhabi sect in this era, namely Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Sheikh, may Allah have mercy upon him, state the implementation of Allah's law alone, without any other laws, is linked to worshipping Allah alone, without associating anyone with him. The essence of these two testimonies is that Allah alone is the one who is worshipped with no partner, and that his messenger is the one to be followed, and whose teachings alone are to be judged by. Verily, the swords of jihad were unsheathed for the sake of this, and to establish it in practice by action and abstention, and to implement it in times of dispute. This is your commentary. It comes as no surprise that such mere rhetoric and inaccurate statements, despite their undeniable positive elements, would come from the Sheikh, may Allah have mercy on him, as they stem from the false and contradictory concept of ibadah within the Wahhabi sect, particularly that it is merely a collection of formal rituals and abstract actions, whether apparent or hidden, such as standing, sitting, bowing, prostrating, fasting, performing Hajj, lighting incense burners, offering sacrifices and offerings, and similar practices. The truth is that implementing the law of Allah is the essence of worshipping Him. It is not something else that could be described as shaqiq al-ibadah, the twin of worship. For the acts of devotion, that is ibadat, ritual acts of worship, are not in themselves ibadah, despite this defined by the definite articles, the alif and the lam, or defined by idafa, as in the saying, worshipping Allah, for which He created jinn and mankind. وَمَا خَلَقْتَ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I created jinn and mankind only to worship me, and that's Surah 51-56. Rather, the ibadah is obedience to the one who commands it, grounded in the firm belief and unwavering faith that the one who commands it is the possessor of intrinsic lordship and ultimate supreme sovereignty, the true God, the one who commands with the truth. This is the exact text of the final Prophet ﷺ, when he said that is their worship, فَتِلْكَ إِبَادَتُهُمْ, and he did not say that is similar or twin or equivalent to their worship, as in instruction to Adi ibn Hatim when he was confused about the Almighty saying, اتخذوا اتخذوا
اتخذوا أربابهم أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله.
They take their rabbis and their monks as lords besides Allah. That's 931. In
Mm.
reply, Ibn Adi ibn Hatim had said, we don't worship them. Then the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, do they not forbid what Allah has permitted, so you forbid it? And did they not permit what Allah has forbidden, so you permit it? At that moment, Adi bin Hatim was rendered speechless and admitted, yes, indeed, this is a certain truth established by the definitive proof, and it is not permissible for anyone who believes in Allah in the last day to believe otherwise. وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Those who reject this should know that Allah has no need of the creation. And that concludes all 4 volumes of this book, Kitab Al-Tawheed. Okay, so that's it. Link in the description for the first 3 volumes to download for free. This one is still on Amazon, but inshallah at some point it will be made available for free as well for download. Okay, so that's it, everyone. Anyone wants to say anything? Sheikh, any final notes on this?
No, but the next edition, inshallah, will be better and better arranged, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah.
We see that. You remember the one that last week asking, say, it's better to define ilah like this, it's confused and so on. Although the correct definition is given there, but given way too late. So this will be rearranged so that we give the correct definition and prove it bit by bit and refute any other definition bit by bit and so on. And that's a better way, the occasional ways, but we have to be worried during the proof not to fall in circularity. To use the final result, work it in the proof, which will become a circularity again, and render the proof invalid.
Okay. Inshallah, next week we'll probably start this book, Counting the Rulers. I'll put that on a public share somewhere. So that's been recently translated. The book itself is something like 20 plus years old, but it's still valid. It's another death knell for Al Saud and UAE, all these tyrannical regimes, because they lie, they hide behind non-arguments, just as they hide behind this flawed definition of ibadah and shirk. They hide behind legitimacy of rulers who steal authority, who oppress the Muslims, rule by kufr, and then they say, you can't touch us because we're your rulers. This book demolishes that entirely, completely, utterly, using stronger evidences. What the Madkhali vermin have done is they hide behind weak evidences, weaker isnad, and they try to promote these as if they are somehow qati and sacrosanct. So this work will destroy all of that. And there's other work as well, which is more recent, but not as necessarily as detailed, and that is fighting the Imatul Quraysh, all available on the GitHub in the link. So feel free to download as you like. The purpose of these halakas is to build a fundamental understanding, to build revival, to build activism, and to end the menace that we have had to contend with in tyrannical rulers who exploit the ignorance of the ummah and have stolen shura. Kingship, tyranny is not justifiable. Rule by kufr is not justifiable. This is what the entire purpose of these halakas are. This is the purpose of this channel. This is the purpose of what we do, because we want to bring the deen back in its entirety, in its purest form. Okay. All right. So if anyone wants to raise hands, feel free. We can have a free for all if you like. Alhamdulillah. So 81 halakas, and we've finished the 4 volumes. And the work continues. The professor is going to do even more revisions on Kitab Al-Tawheed. Inshallah, the work continues. Also, if anyone has any suggestions for future, any books to do, feel free. I mean, we've done in audio. We did Usul al-Fiqh, 2 books on science of hadith. If you come across something that's really interesting, something that's fundamental, that's something that we can improve upon, build upon, throw it over. The previous halakas, the doc used to literally go through Usul al-Fiqh based off of other people's work and comment on it on the fly. So if you find something meaty, something substantial, send it over. We can always entertain it and discuss it, inshallah. and do an entire series based off of it. Okay, Sheikh, any final words from you for today?
No, was today supposed to be the book or monthly?
We don't do monthlies anymore. There's people are too apathetic. I mean, for as far as monthly dawah catch-ups, my perspective is simple. A person has to exhibit interest for it to become worth it. No point doing something for the sake of it. And the people who are already active. They have daily discussions and they're continuously in contact.
Okay.
If someone's serious, to serious. If you can't take the phrase is you can take a horse to water, you can't get it to drink. So I'm done with begging people. If a person sees the importance of a cause, they will move. If they don't see the importance of the cause, no matter what you do, whether you get a defibrillator and give them 20 cc's of adrenaline, they'll never move. It's on them. So anyways, alhamdulillah, inshallah. And it was also I always use the phrase, we have friends everywhere. There's other people in other groups who are listening to us intently and adopting our ideas as well. Inshallah, and we're making back channels towards them as well for discussion. So inshallah, I mean, look, it's not about us. We could be in our grave tomorrow, and as long as the work carries on, it doesn't matter. I could die in an unmarked grave. I'll be happy with it as long as Allah knows what we do. Okay, yeah, far away, bruv. Yo, unmuted, far away.
Assalamu alaikum. Unrelated question though.
Far away.
All right. I remember one time you said, I think you said if something is haram to eat, it's also haram to purchase or something like that. Something like that.
Not to purchase, haram to sell. Make money.
To sell.
To sell as a food.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
Because of the hadith. الله إذا حرم شيئا حرم ثمنه.
Translate.
Okay, that's it.
What is it?
Only not transporting and not any of these except for khamr. It has that exception.
Okay.
So the hadith you mentioned, Sheikh, what was that again?
If Allah prohibits something to eat as a food, then He prohibits its price. Meaning selling it and taking the price. In the context that maita is dead, it's haram to eat. Yeah. And then some people said, what's about benefit of its fat? Because we use it not for food, we use it for ships and so on, and make it tight and bring it together and things like that. Said Kalla, this is what the Jews have done, taking out Allah's command by melting fats and selling it as for other applications than eating. But it's prohibited, and the fat by itself is necessary, gained originally for food. So in the maita, it is khalas, part of the maita. It's edible. So it's najis, it's haram, it cannot be sold, and the money of it can be taken. That's all. While he saw once a maita and said, why didn't you benefit from its skin? They said, she's maita. He said, Allah prohibited it as eating, meaning the skin is not edible. So it's not included in the prohibition. They get the benefit of it. And do tanning and so on to prevent rotting and so on. This is common sense. Yeah. Okay. So the logic is clear, except Khamr has other provisions for it.
Interesting.
No, it's not that. That's the rule. Interesting or not. So nobody can come to you. You are carrying. You are having a transporter, and you don't mind carrying. I would mind. I would do it personally. You don't mind carrying pigs for an Englishman to his English butchery. That's fine.
Yeah, he's got background noise.
You're taking money for the transport. You're not the buyer, nor the seller, nor the eating. So.
Okay, I've had to mute because there's background noises. Future note: if people have questions, structure them properly and get to a place so they don't. We're not hearing background noise because this is public. People are going to be listening. So a bit of professionalism. I mean, find a place. I mean, there's a big world out there.
Another example, a modern one I constructed. You are keeping pigs and not as a food, and you're selling them to be used for experimentation. They're important for medical experimentation and biological experimentation. So these not pigs for eat. So you can own them and sell them. No problem. Yeah.
Okay, far away, Burhan. I'm
You
going to do
understand
my
the logic of
sure.
that issue based on the one hadith, and for the khamr, the other extended hadith. Simple and this. Okay. Understood?
Yeah, you have. I thought I put him on mute. Burhan, far away.
Right now. Irrelevant question to what we're speaking about, but people like these fiqh questions. So, quick one. Ustad, is the blood money of a man and woman equal, or is there any difference?
It should be equal. There's no evidence for differences. It's faulty hadith or stinky qiyas.
Yeah, I think there are akhbar regarding them. I don't know if they're from the Sahaba generation or if they're marfu' and muttasil to the Prophet.
Collect them and then we study them. I will show you that they are faulty or fabricated.
Yeah. I think so. Also, the dhimmi, and another misunderstanding.
The same thing with the dhimmi.
The dhimmi is the same, yes.
I will show you the hadith are faulty.
Ustad, I found something interesting. Of course, it's always funny when we link a lot of these blunders and bid'ah to Muawiyah. But Shaybani, I think he relates in one of his polemics against Malik that Muawiyah was the first to say that the Muslims' blood money is double that of the dhimmi. But I know that, but I don't know where it is. Get it, and then we will verify it. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So as usual, Muawiyah does a lot of these things that affect fiqh.
Yeah, it's doing bid'ah kufr. Just a kufri bid'ah if we establish it. Because it's a public law, not like adopting Ziyad as his brother. We could say this is a private action, not public, although it was done in all publicity, obviously, and was quite filthy. Even Bani Umayyah was a rebellion.
By analogy, do you remember when you reported that narration where a man marries his stepmother publicly after his father passes away? Then Rasulullah sends Fulan, Sahabi, to execute that man and take the wealth. So by analogy, Muawiyah is not ruling here with what Allah has revealed. He's saying that a man from zina is his father's son, just for politics. So by analogy, I think it's the same value. Yeah. Red card, as you say, red card, out.
No, but I mean, this is not kufr buah for the affecting a system, affecting Muawiyah himself, For Muawiyah, it's an act of kufr, We're not discussing that.
Yeah.
But the issue with the diya is worse. It's a public sphere. It's making a system applying to everyone. It's not related to him and he violating Islam and committing kufr for himself. He's already kafir before anyway. You see what I mean in that situation?
Yes, I do.
So this should be worse than the issue of adopting Ziyad publicly. Or the issue of adopting in public is more disgusting. And Bani Umayyah was
you are right, of course.
And causing sensibility, but that one is worse. If we establish it to be true.
Of course. Even for instance, the famous controversial ruling that when Abu Hanifa gave the fatwa that when a non-Muslim is killed by a Muslim, there is qisas.
Yeah.
Yes. That was very controversial due to the famous hadith that no Muslim is killed for a kafir, but the context of that hadith was during vengeance and war of the Jahiliyyah.
Even that hadith, they quote this cut down in pieces. The full hadith.
That's what I mean.
لا يقتل مؤمن بكافر ولا ذو عهد في عهده بكافر. So the one is ذو عهد cannot be killed by a kafir. This means that the kafir mentioned there is the one who is out of the kafir in Jahiliyyah or the one who is out of the Islamic domain. A dhimmi in our domain will not be killed because of that. The same like a Muslim. So the dhimmi and Muslim are having the same rank in this issue, which indicates they have equal blood money, equal protection, and so on. Yeah. But they cut it in pieces and they do look at the context. The usual way which got a previous nation into catastrophe in their derivation and deformed their religion.
Another question for you, Ustad, because it's very important and controversial. So the age of marriage, is it just puberty or is it bulugh and rushd? The age of marriage according to the Sharia. Is it puberty?
It must be, the minimum must be something that she has the capability of making offer and acceptance.
Yeah, that's the definition of Ibn Abbas gives for actual bulugh, where someone goes to maturity is when they know their benefit, their
That
harm.
has to be studied
Yeah.
more thoroughly, the detail. But the principle is that prohibition of marrying one underage is because her consent must be given. But consent or no consent, underage is irrelevant. What is
She-
underage? That has to be analyzed further.
in order for her to be consenting, she needs to be decision making, and for her to be decision
Making be liable of making a decision and being accountable for that.
exactly. So she's
That's
accountable.
not
She
for
knows her
underage.
harm and she knows her benefit. Exactly.
It's not underage. That's the reason even in Western law, if you do it with one underage, independent of what they define underage, the age limit they set, it's regarded as rape because it's her consent is not consent, is nonsense, is nothing.
Yep. Exactly.
It is a correct logic. The only dispute will be what is going on there with the age, fixing it by age or by poverty or by a minimum age as a condition for bulugh, like I would say for women generally we are getting really at 12 years, but this is not enough. She should be tested for rushd, for capability of concluding contracts and so on, exactly like putting the money of the orphan in his hand.
So, for example, this changes from country to country, time periods.
It needs ijtihad in detail.
Of
We
course,
don't go into detail now, otherwise we'll get astray. The fundamental principle is clear. It must be at least menstruation because this is the lowest limit. And after that, we may say, okay, but look at what the matter with the very important issue of giving the orphans their money under their own responsibility.
Yeah.
It is, I said, فإذا بلغوا النكاح فامتحنوا اليتامى. Test the yatama when they reach nikah.
Yep.
Menstruate, capable of being conceiving for women and producing children for men.
Yeah.
You test them. If you feel and perceive that they have sufficient rationality to manage their affairs, then give their money and do a document and have witnesses and so on.
Ustad, we need to emphasize something as well, though, especially not only because it's controversial right now, but objectively, morally, it is important and it's aligned with the Quran and Sunnah.
I would not go this argument because morally, what is morally? We go to the endless definition. What's morally?
Why did Rasulullah say la darar wa la dirar? So why did he say it like that?
This is not as such. It's not an authority. It's the prohibition of doing harm to someone else is based on many evidences, not in that single hadith.
No, of course.
Besides, he said la darar. Now the darar mentioned there can be perceived by testing the thing in the universe.
Of course, that's what I mean. Yeah.
But this is not moral definition. I would avoid it with morality. Say, contravene divine injunction, which has been communicated to us. So doing harm is prohibited because the Messenger of Allah said it, not because moral issues. Now, what is harm? That's not a moral issue. That's a physical reality issue, testing the physical reality.
I don't think both can be divorced. Anyway, we're getting into
No. It will be a problem. It will go in a fundamental problem. It will be a catastrophic problem. Don't go there. Don't go there.
What is the problem, Ustad?
Because the divine act in the universe making things harmful or good in itself, in the biological and physical sense, does not imply prohibition. Or does not prohibit forbidding by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But by Allah's mercy, in the final Sharia, they are quite synchronous.
Okay. So
our Sharia, morality does not make any sense. What is moral? What do you mean moral? Is this another principle beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No, according to the principle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I'm arguing that it's intrinsically there. So, for example, this Sharia...
No, intrinsically there, that darar physically. We can test it. We know what the meaning of darar.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes, of course.
That's the way of defining darar. Not moral or non-moral. No. That's something which can be harmful physically.
Yeah.
And we can test that by physical experimentation. But we know it is made so in this universe by Allah, designed in the initial foundation of it, designing the universe by Qadar. It's done. Finished.
Yeah, what I was trying to link to, the reason why I brought la darar wa la dirar is because the age...
That's a prophetic injunction. That's not a moral principle.
Yeah. Again, the Ustad, it goes back to the ayat. Or Allah permits the طيبات and forbids the khaba'ith.
No, for Muhammad alayhi salam, he is not obliged. And he did that when Israel opposite to that. So don't go in this nightmare. Read again the book of Tawheed about the section about يأمرهم بالطيب يحل لهم الطيبات ويحرم عليهم الخبائث.
Yeah. So what I was trying to
Therefore,
link,
this will be ending you into a fundamental problem about Allah's wisdom or how it is defined.
But Ustad, the opposite. Look, I understand the philosophical issues it causes. Yes, I do see what you're saying.
No,
But
it's a fundamental catastrophe. If you look at it more deeper.
But Ustad, the opposite is a fundamental catastrophe as well, isn't it? Is it not? Where one, Allah loses moral agency, He loses the divine attributes of wisdom, He loses the divine attribute of justice, and in contrast to it, He gains an arbitrary, random action, will, where it's very spontaneous and He just does things for the sake of it. Now, that's also
No. Does it because He is the divine being with the necessary existing things and attributes. So His choice is by necessity of reason the good one.
But, okay, but
Not He made the choice because it's good in some other consideration. It is necessarily by itself the good one, even if from our side looks like arbitrary.
No, but we're saying the same thing then.
No, it's not the same thing. We say the Hakim does only for a certain purpose. Not true.
So okay, so you're saying He's not doing for a purpose, right? Okay.
Not necessarily. He defined the purpose. And there are many purposes He can choose for them arbitrarily according to that what He perceives as preferable. For you, it may appear not like that. For the say, Allah is obliged to do al-Hasan wal-Ahsan instead of Hasan. What is Ahsan and Hasan? You will go into a nightmare. If it is defined outside the definition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you have two deities, two eternal things.
It's a nightmare.
Or you have acting by necessity like a nature.
Okay, but now the opposite is arbitrary nature, where He's doing things randomly.
It's not arbitrary. It appears to you arbitrary.
No. I'm not saying where it appears to us. I'm saying
you have to postulate this is absolute freedom. If you regard it as arbitrary, that's your mistake, not the reality of things. Because comprehending what the meaning of absolute freedom is only accessible to the absolute mind. Because we have limited freedom. We have genuine freedom, but in a limited circle.
Yeah.
So we look at the condition that we don't hit the circle and become ineffective. There's no limited circle, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So interpret it to them what you say. So you cannot say Allah is obliged to do the better and the best and things like that. No. He is absolutely free to do whatever He wants. You may perceive it arbitrary because you are a limited being. But your judgment cannot be valid for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the one who judges, and His judgment is final. Because of His nature being necessarily existing and having knowledge and absolutely free. Otherwise, you end with a nature which is dead, blind, because there's nothing in between. If we go to the necessary existing and to the eternity, in the finite there is many scales of wisdom and so on. Someone is wise, someone is wiser. Why? Because you see more. His knowledge can be expanded. And we'll talk about the knowledge in the foundation of the word, al-Huduri. Later, there will be an acquired knowledge, but seeing the development and know what is going on, and based on that acquire new knowledge, which does not contradict that He is all-knowing. Otherwise, we end in contradiction and the Jabr. Jabr, the worst type of Jabr, not that humans are Jabr. To the hell with humans Jabr. He, the divine, will be majbur. Then we are back to the nature, dead, blind, deaf nature. And then we have atheism. And that's the reason Lenin, who said, what's pantheism? They explained to him, say, what a great expression of atheism covered in a religious symbolism. You have to be very cautious. We'll write that in more detail, inshallah, than what we have in the Book of Tawheed and we mentioned in discussion with a full detail.
Ustad, yeah, I'm with you. I muted myself by accident. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
So wait. Look, I know I'm taking your time, but just bear with me. Now we are agreeing. Okay, you have me on agreements. If you do an infinite regression of courses based on purpose, sorry, if you
Yeah,
can
it will end. It will
Exactly.
end
Okay,
or
no
end in
problem.
absolute freedom. There's no other solution.
But wait, the other option is arbitrary. The third option is
It's
what
not
exactly?
arbitrary. It is absolute freedom. That's the definition of absolute freedom. You have
No,
to.
but okay, but so why is God choosing A over B, Ustad? Based on what is he choosing A over
We
B?
don't know, and we are not allowed to even ask. لا يسأل عما يفعل.
Okay, so okay, that's a more like tafweedi understand. No,
No, it's
problem.
not. No, yeah, but it is not a tafweed. It's dictated by necessity of reason. And I discussed that also, that Allah cannot be questioned. I discussed why. You question Allah, He responds to you, and the response that the question and answer is there. And there's no escape from it.
Okay.
My definition must accept my choice is the wisest one.
Yeah, because I did.
Even if it appears to you arbitrary. That's the reason you are asking for what purpose they are doing. No, you are not even allowed to ask. The moment you ask, you annihilate reason.
I see.
By setting that finite reason can question the infinite one. But this is not impossible. That's contradiction. It doesn't work. It goes deeper. This I prefer avoid that problem.
Yes.
Then not talk about morality is somehow obliged to Allah. It is defined by Allah. What's more, the same with that something is harmful in this universe, and something is poisonous, maybe not in another universe. That's by sitting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then in the one and same universe, which we have something which is good intrinsically, meaning good biologically, good, which we can test in laboratories with animal experiments, is not necessary. Like, for example, say, why is khanzir prohibited? It is good meat. The worms, okay, we can make an injunction that khanzir should not be consumed except after proper cooking, boiling. Otherwise, it's not allowed. Then it's become halal. No, it will never become halal because maybe it may, because the reason maybe if there's any reason, maybe not the worm, maybe just to protect khanzir from being edible because it's appointed to be the garbage collector of nature. And if you start eating khanzir, you make an imbalance in the nature, which you may see after 1,000 years. You don't know about that.
Yeah, we don't need to know this as well. We don't need to know the.
It could be also, Allah said, khanzir is the most delicious meat, as many people claim, especially if done as in the way of a breakfast and so on, these slices. Perfectly fine. I'm testing you that you love khanzir more or meat.
But that wouldn't work in our law system, because in our law system, it's not like the ones of Ben Israel.
No.
I get your example.
No, not necessarily, but in Israel is essentially the question in our law will be, since Muhammad permits everything halal and prohibits everything haram.
Yes.
So, khabith, not everything khabith or bad. What is bad in khanzir? It has excellent taste, and if it's cooked properly, the worms are gone. See, the bad aspect that it causes imbalance in nature which you don't see.
Okay, yeah.
Or this. Or the khabith is this very enticing to eat. Allah say, I want to test your obedience. And be preference, and it's very easy. But you can one pair of pig can produce 10. It's very cheap, very economical. I want to test if you prefer these benefits for you, which are benefit indeed.
Yeah.
Over my command, I'm testing that also. All of these considerations, and you can count so many considerations, you get confused. So, basically, we assume there's some kind of khubth which you don't know in this Sharia. But in the previous one, you cannot do this assumption because he deliberately allowed Bani Israel the monarchy system, although he told them this is an evil system. You're back in the future. You will suffer injustice. They said, we want it. So, permission given, but don't supplicate against oppressive kings from now on. I will not listen. It's a clear deal. He at liberty to do that.
Yeah, I understand. So, Ustad, I don't have any problem. Of course, I'll be a kafir if I do with the liberty argument. I just want to avoid the other issue that they might ascribe to God, which is arbitrary randomness.
No, there's no arbitrary randomness. Absolute freedom is not arbitrary randomness. Arbitrary randomness is choosing from contingencies. The theory of probability, the equation of probability and the inequalities refer to use the axiom of so-called of randomness. If you remove that axiom, you get the inequality of Bell in quantum mechanics. It's a genuine choice, not randomness. But it looks for you as randomness in a limited way, not absolute randomness. So the quantum fluctuations having some kind of basic freedom, but so rudimentary that you cannot ascribe it to consciousness. Imagine it expanded to the level of universe, mashallah. That may be a good explanation how we have got consciousness, because trillions of brain cells have quadrillions, 10 to the 100, not a quadrillion, the so-called big quad connection. And when it gets to that size, an interconnection so dense, it suddenly becomes conscious. Well, all is there, so fine. Imagine that expanded at infinity. That must be the free will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's not the type of randomness. It's just the conception of the human mind. That's the reason the best way to say, stop. And that's answered in the Quran. لا يسأل عما يفعل. Try to ask, then we'll get the answer. And we have a dialogue there. One way of discuss philosophical issues or deep issues like that, truth and false, is to do so-called a dialogue or a table of it. In that case, the dialogue approach is clear. And I've mentioned, read in the book to hide the dialogue. You think, okay, you ask God, why is this?
Yeah.
I did it because my choice is genuinely the correct one. So how can I understand that? And to which are you doubting that? Should we refer to someone to whom we should refer? What is in existence which can be referred to? A mind. Your mind is limited. So my mind, that's the only reference possible. And by necessity, of being necessarily existing, my mind is perfect. This is the fact I have to accept that you have to accept. Are you doubting that? No, I'm not doubting that. So we go back, and then you must admit. So the question is not answerable, and you're not allowed to do the question not allowed on rational ground. It's the fallacy to ask that. Not because Sharia said haram. No, we are not halal yet.
You're saying it doesn't make sense?
Yeah. So the appearance that it looks like it appears as if it's absolutely random and nonsensical and so is only appearance. Because even our own freedom, we have difficulty, and there's a reason many people who are naturalists say it's an illusion. There's no freedom. It is maybe some food I ate 1 month ago is keeping some particles and bacteria who is causing me to that. So I'm deluded. The answer to that say, listen, even if I'm deluded, the concept of freedom is there. In that case, it's delusion. But if we go the correct way of the principle of necessity, and the universe is rational, we establish as a rational, supreme rational being, and his absolute power and rationality, guarantee that my choice is genuine and true. How complex it is, it may be very complex, maybe almost incomprehensible to do, but his guarantee, as stated in his scripture, that's only that we rely on our freedom, that our freedom is genuine. Otherwise, it may be a delusion by going this way. But the divine freedom is dictated by necessity of reason, otherwise dead blind nature, which we can prove by a bit of complicated ontological argument that doesn't exist, or if it exists, nothing otherwise will be exist. And that's wahdatul wujud. Nothing else will exist.
Exactly.
That's what, in case of wahdatul wujud, everything, the changing and so on, is only apparent, is a delusion. Everything is fixed from eternity to eternity, which is manifestly absorbed according to our experiences. So that's what refutes, because pantheism is essentially atheism, but atheism with a spiritual touch. That
pantheism is atheism.
Dead blind is not dead blind; it is living, but living in dormant, in a suspended state for all eternity.
Yeah, for example, the Neoplatonists, their notion of God is very distorted.
Yeah.
Outside of time, he can't do anything. He can't do A over B. Yet at the same time, in a paradoxical fashion, he supposedly has justice and wisdom, which I don't know how they are able to reconcile those two opposites and contradictions. But this is definitely a problem. No, I see the problems of many sides. I'm trying to reconcile as much as possible. That's why I try to take a middle position. between what the Mu'tazila say and what the
There's no
Ash'ari
middle one. The problem is not constructible.
Mm.
If you want to construct it, mean contradiction can be allowed, and then you are leaving the rational universe a reality and assume there's an option, choosable option, of an irrational magic universe in which things can disappear and appear haphazardly. Because it's magic universe, contradiction can happen. In a rational universe, we have to choose. Are we in a rational reality? Does it make sense? That means the principle of contradiction is absolute. We cannot break it. If
Yeah.
someone comes to say, oh, most modern time, there's nothing absolute. It's relative. Relative to what? This is not valid question in a magic universe. Because something can be relative while being absolute at the same time. Doesn't mean relative to anything else.
Mm.
So if you come with this argument, say, no. It's relative to itself, and it's absolute relative to itself, although it cannot be absolute, and both it goes because we are in a, he claims the reality there. Then I can answer, okay, the only way we be practical, maybe you really do not exist. You are not living. So commit suicide, make a test by yourself. I will not do it because I don't believe this belief. You do it. Show me. The only thing is this practical point. Demonstrate that you really believe in that, and not just saying it to run away from the assumption of the horrible assumption there's a God who will account you one day. We don't want that. We want to run away from him. So do it. Show me. Demonstrate. Otherwise, shut up. Don't talk to me. Maybe you don't exist. Maybe an imagination. Why are you talking to me? That's the other way to go. Either the principle of contradiction is absolute in some sense, not in details. That we will detect later when do this.
the details we can't always
If the necessary existing absolutely free, then we are. That's the absolute reference. We started with something absolute in some sense, but it's absolute and cannot be avoided. That's contradiction and not possible. And we ended there's a necessity existing which is absolute free and who radiates this principle in all his creation, in some sense or another. Then the other way, no rationality, mindless universe, magic universe, nothing closes. You go circle, go back to yourself, circle, nothing closes. Everything goes mishmash. It's very well possible that whole reality is all contingent. The only argument that's not possible because there must be an existential. That's because the issue of contradiction, we have abolished that. We are now in the freedom of madness. Come to us. Thank you very much. You stay in your madness and commit a suicide to test it. I'm here. I don't need. You cannot charge me to talk about her. Besides, why are you talking to me? Maybe I exist for you or don't exist at the same time. Just goes. So an irrational universe, a magic universe, is completely magical, completely, nothing can be asserted, or things can be asserted and the opposite at the same time. Obviously, by fitra, by immediate first beginning of perception, this is very offensive, but it's not a proof in itself. But it's extremely offensive. It's a choice which I will reject right away. That's it, the other one. We may find more argument to exclude the other. The other one is extremely improbable, obviously, because I can review again and come back and check myself and review again. So by this dialectic process, I'll make it less probable. But less probable is not enough. We make it we want to get in a level which we prove from our vantage point of view that the magic universe, the assumption is just an imaginary fiction which is impossible to be realized anywhere without using the principle of contradiction. It's awfully difficult. So we go to level 0, we have these two options. That other option of the magic universe, contradictions are possible. This completely irrational world, we declare to be a mentally deranged world. We don't want to be living in that. So assume that we have something absolute, at least like this principle, is valid in absolute sense, cannot be broken ever in some sense. What made more precise by laborious process, okay, based on that external world exists, we go everything we see and touch and so on and conclude and do by mathematical conclusion from the existing reality is contingent but the principle of contradiction, together with the invalidity and refutation of infinite regress, that's based also on contradiction. That's really genuine contradiction. Refutation of Hume's claim that principle of causality is just a human perception. No, he's cheating in that. Actually, it violates the principle of contradiction. Yes, we perceive it naturally and use it. So Kant could say this is a synthetic or judgment a priori. But that does not mean that the synthetic judgment a priori in its deep is based on the principle of contradiction.
Yeah.
You can use it directly because it's valid really. And synthetic, yes, used to explain things, but does not mean that they're used to explain things that's independent from the principle of contradiction. Hume claims otherwise. If something sudden appears from nothing without any cause or anything, we will be surprised, but we will not see any contradiction. Say he cheated in the presenting the case, and he took Kant for a ride in this point. Then we refute this. So then everything fits, and then we must have an existing being. Otherwise, this reality could not have existed and be there. No, this is existing. We have only one problem there. He is from him, everything continues had resulted. How? Is it by an act of free will or some kind of outflow, emanation, radiation? Emanation, radiation is possible because it's only possible for a composite object.
Sorry, what do you mean by emanation?
That's what they use the philosophers. That the first,
That's what they use. Yeah, they use
it radiate out. What's mean radiate out? That's the part of his being got out of him. That's the only way.
And they give the analogy of a sun, the way the sun radiates light without having control over it. God Almighty.
But this analogy is false because the light of sun is particles or waves separating from the sun, and the sun is losing weight by that over billions of years. So anyway, but the sun is a composite object. It can emanate without having a mind or just by necessity.
Yeah.
For an existing being, he cannot be split. He's absolutely single, and he's absolutely compressed. There is no gap. Samad.
Samad, yeah.
As Abbas said, La jawfa lahu. So we are stuck. It can't be creating by this way. So it must be a spontaneous, absolutely free act. This is the only alternative. There's no other alternative. What's about half and half is not possible because it will contradict, because the existing being is having the following radical discovery. Anything which can be said about a contingent being could be said about consistent being if it doesn't entail limitation and contingency. Otherwise, it cannot be said. And if it doesn't entail, then it is having possibility to be perfect, then it must be to the utmost perfection, which does not create contradiction. There is nothing in between, zero and infinity. That's the feature of being existent. And this is a mathematical model for things which have this feature, zero to infinity, zero or infinity, or a range. We could case this is a shadow of the issue of necessarily existing and contingent beings and things like that. Shadow in mathematics. So it's possible to have entities in mathematical terms. Obviously, it has nothing to do with things existing. It's abstract mathematical things. Which, so it's not impossible. It is possible, and these are called they're called factors of first class, second class, and third class. So factors of third class, which collection of operators in Hilbert space of certain type. These factors having so-called the relative trace, which is either zero or infinity. The one of middle class having a trace, which is in a certain range from A to B continuously. And the first class, that's the second class. The first class is having a trace, is a discrete A, B, C, D, E, F. So it shows, mathematics shows that can exist mathematically without contradiction. In abstract things abstract are formulated only linguistically. But independently of that, that's what we have. So in this case, we like that. But there's no other choice.
Yeah.
Either acting by necessity, which is impossible, requires emanation and splitting, which is impossible, or acting with freedom, but it can't be just any freedom. It must be the utmost freedom. Otherwise, it's not befitting for necessarily existing. And these acts will be wise and wiser. No, it's either not wise and will never come from him, or absolute wisdom. For us here, it looks like arbitrary, maybe.
No, for us, it doesn't look arbitrary either. We do see patterns and signs and wisdom and beauty and benefit.
No, if we look to him in his being in an abstract way. So we should not look at that. We look in the universe and then we follow in the universe as usual. That's a safe way. But following in the safe way ended us with a necessary existing being. Oh, it's only one. There's no other option. If any exists, then it must be maximum one. But one must exist, otherwise, if undermine the principle of rationality, going to the rational world. Infinite regress become a joke. Already said. So we insist between rationality. So it is minimum one, maximum one. So it must be exactly one.
Exactly.
And one can be of various types. There are various types, you can list them. One of them is just listed linguistically. But if you check them, it turns out they're impossible. Like the one acting by this. You could call that an ontological proof. An ontological proof of God. You don't need cosmology. You don't cosmology in the sense. You don't need to think about the Big Bang and the detail and choice of area parameter. Just all the. We ended with some being which could not be possibly deaf, blind, dead nature. It is some kind of having knowledge and having free action, but of utmost freedom. And this is what we call Hayy Qayyum. There's no other choice. There's nothing else. Either this or this. The other one is impossible. This is the only possible, and necessarily the only one there. And we have then the absolute, which from all absolute principle emanate. We could say his being is the encompassment or the connection or the collection, whatever language you use. It has some high fault. Let's say so embodiment. Even the word embodiment is also questionable. Of all truths, he is the absolute truth and all truth concentrated in one being. This is a very bad expression, but the best you can do with human language. And that's we stop there. How do you go from there? Again, now we can come back and establish. Now we can refute the issue that our freedom, although limited by necessity, because we are contingent that created, that freedom is genuine and not an illusion. How do we know that? If we check the scripture and addressing us commanded and making us responsible, and it's impossible for God to make us responsible, that will violate the divine perfection.
That's a very good point, actually, Ustad. You know, without scripture,
so the divine justice, and which is intrinsically, or the divine lack of volume, is actually that's a bit. But in that case of them, we call it justice. We call it justice. And we can define it. In the counting ruler, I define what is the meaning of justice and what the meaning of the hadith. I prohibit the justice on myself and make it between you. We discussed that in counting ruler. So there's a definition of justice which is absolute and applies to Allah.
Universal.
Universal. Because it is in the divine characteristic of being necessarily existing.
Otherwise,
based on that, is no way that, and he doesn't lie, is also based on he being the al-haq. Al-haq cannot lie, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Contingent being can lie. It seems to be accessible, but accessible only for the contingent because it's his shortcoming. It is not accessible. Even the power can reach there, cannot reach there. Absolutely excluded for him. And initiating deceit. But deceiving the deceiver as a response, that's perfectly fine. But
that's
never
justice.
initiating.
That's justice.
That's part of the issue of definition of justice. So because of that, it is no way to look at the scripture and see that he's say Mashiach for you, Mashiach for yakfur, and it will make you accountable, that this Mashiach is delusional fake. With the guarantee of a statement, not with anything else. So his freedom is guaranteed by necessity of it. Must be like that. But ours could be delusion, which is very remote as well. The argument for delusion is very stupid. You can make testing for yourself and decide and say, can I change the decision and talk to yourself? But they will see that's also a delusion. That's all because you ate some bacteria for a few days, something like that. But that divine speech, if it's established with certitude, that freedom I feel, that's genuine freedom, although limited. Obviously, there's limits there. I cannot go infinitely far. That is genuine. How I know that and be confident about that? By the guarantee of the absolute free, by necessity, the absolute knowledgeable. And then you are there. Only by that. But his is by necessity of reason. Otherwise, we go to the other horrible or impossible option of the magic, nonsensical universe. Magic, mindless universe. And then we have to take completely other approach, which produces nothing, because any statement can be composed to another statement. For example, when the Hindus say the world is having no beginning, it's circular, it goes in cycles of 10 to 30 years and so on. And then it restart again, recreate itself again. How can it recreate itself after having disappeared? No, it is possible. Who said that? It creates contradiction. No problem, contradiction are welcome. And the gods disappear. And then they emerge again from material called Brahmana, not Brahma. From Brahmana, Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva emerge. And for 10 to 30 years, and then again they disappear and re-emerge. How can they disappear, re-emerge? You're still believing in contradiction. Clean your head from that. Go into the magical Sufi, Gnostic world. Welcome to madness. Join us in madness. That's the only way to accept that.
Ustad, let me ask you a question related to this. Some new Platonists asked the question, since there is a point of time, I know this doesn't make sense, of course, from a divine perspective, this is different, but we, from our language, we say there's a point of time where there was nothing, only God was, and then another point of time, there was the beginning of the creation, right? So they say
the problem with that is that again we're talking for our side without constructing mathematical. I will construct for you that it is the time gap between the eternity and the end of eternity and starting of time running is infinitesimally small. That's another expression of for looking.
Sorry, Ustad, you can't say that again. What did you say?
Is infinitesimally small. The time gap is infinitesimally, meaning if we look from start from our time and go back and go back and go back, we approach eternity without almost touching it and never touching it.
Yes.
Model for that, there's a mathematical model, so this is possible. There's not any contradiction, but it needs to be heavy mathematics and the correct definition of limits, which we achieved essentially in the 19th century, later through Cantor and so on, is that a model which represents that, at least show that it's possible in a consistent system, abstract system, not a reality, is the logarithmic function. If you go back with the logarithmic function all the way to 0, you never reach there.
Yeah.
And then 0 is, you can say 0 is essentially excluded from the definition. Now, can we define the logarithm by any way for negative? No, because the negative axis is cut away, is not existent. So with a if Allah has exists in eternity, the point of eternity is a point, is not long, then what is before him? There's no before.
There's no before.
It's an impossibility. It's a deception of the language and the deception of the mind. And the logarithm, someone say, oh, we can extend the logarithm in the complex plane. Yeah, you can extend and have a horrible multiplicity, but if you come to the negative axis, even the complex plane, you cannot find it. It's not there.
Yeah.
It's an impossibility. So and this is a consistent mathematical system which have no contradiction.
So, okay, so how would you answer this? If there is an eternity where God is just God and he's alone, how can that eternity cease to exist and something starts to exist?
That's a spontaneous, absolute reaction of Allah. That's when we start.
My answer was this. Do you critique my answer just to strengthen it? So because I believe the ex nihilo, that God created the ex nihilo. So they say that we are in a logical contradiction or in a paradox for this reason. We claim that God was eternally by himself, but then the creation existed. So then their problem is, how does this eternity, if it truly is eternity, how does it cease to exist? My answer or rebuttal against that was that the eternity that God is alone, that eternity is not real eternity. That eternity
I tell you what is the error in that. Now you are looking to eternity as if you are capable of comprehending it. No, You look at it as a limit point, which is out of my reach for all time. Even it is not accessible to Allah's power to make you understand it. So it is out. So I have to approach it from what is under my control from now and go back to the limit. Now, how the jump from eternity to the which is infinitely close, almost touching to the time, this is the first absolutely spontaneous act of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what it is. And this fits with the hadith of Nabawi that we discussed many times. Allah said, start with a remarkable etiquette question and the question of taste and so on. The son of Adam is slandering me or hurting me. He says, what a miserable time. No. He say, don't do that. That's all what expect. Suddenly you get something absolutely shocking coming. You don't find that very scripture, you don't find it by anybody, and you don't expect it even from the biggest philosopher in the world at that time. What Allah says? That's Hadith Qudsi of Bukhari, obviously, with one of the best isnad, but still a single. It's not mutawatir.
Of course.
So what it says, وَأَنَا الدَّهْرُ
أُقَلِّبُ
اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ بِأَمْرِي.
Yeah.
Mention day and night because that's what we measure for day.
Yes.
So what we see as a change of time is actually the events happening out there. And the fundamental event is that what eternity was terminated and time started without any time separation. Model to understand that is the logarithmic function. Any way to imagine yourself in eternity, you are in trouble. There's no way you are going to manage it. There's no way you're going to manage it.
Yeah.
And the other hadith done about كان الله ولم يكن شيء قبله أو معه أو عنده. I would say it may be all narrated. The messenger said all of them, and some people memorize this and this and this. Or he said قبله is enough.
So regardless of which,
that's the point of eternity.
Yeah. So Ustaz, sorry, whichever version it is, it still goes to the idea that Allah was alone in eternity, right? So their argument,
even that, I would say كان الله better is to stick to the word كان الله لم يكن شيء قبله or معه and so on.
Okay, Ustaz, no,
and then let me complete.
Yeah.
And then I am dahr. So essentially he's saying, but Prophet cannot use this language, nobody will understand that time. It's impossible to understand today. And essentially what he's saying, أنا الدهر أقلب الليل it's meaning that he is the eternity, not only because the eternity is a time, regarded usually as of time type. So he's the beginning of the dahr is the eternity, and all the change after is by his command and his free choices.
He is eternity.
He is eternity. He is the awwal. He is the all in all at the beginning.
Yeah.
And the first act, before that there was no time, no extension, negative time, imaginary negative time, which you can express linguistically, do not exist in reality.
Very good.
Don't try to be there, otherwise you'll be in a place which you are unable to see anything or in the anything, because you're dealing with infinity. No way a human or any created being can
Ustad,
deal with the infinity except in limits.
So I give this analogy with infinite. For example, from now, this period, you and me are talking, it is an impossibility. It's an impossibility for us to go back in infinity. But it is possible for us from now to go forward.
That's something else. Forget about forward. Forward, the future is open because Allah is absolutely free. That's the reason. And the Jabr is invalid.
No, I'm making an analogy out of this. The analogy
this analogy will not work because going back to the beginning, either go for never ending, and this will be contradiction and will be infinite regress. So it must end. And before that begins, so-called beginning, your imagination will think, what's about with the negative times, the times before? There's no times before. There's nothing before. Absolutely nothing before.
Yeah.
It's an impossibility. But it appears to you because of the linguistic expression قبله لم يكن شيء قبله شيء قبله. It's linguistically as if it is something, but in reality it's not impossible.
But it's nothing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You talk to it as if it is talk about it as if it's something.
So a lot of these philosophical matters are actually
linguistic. They got caught by semantic or linguistic illusion. Like,
illusion, yeah.
For example, the square circle, we constructed as an entity, but let me tell you that you can make a statement which make you think there's something called square circle. They say this square is a circle. Looks like a genuine statement.
Mm.
But reality, it is not a statement. It's blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. Yeah, it could be like blah, 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 blah. That will
Yeah.
not confuse you. But because it's formulated as if it's a statement, it is not. So if you ask, does it has any truth value, true or false? Neither. It's an impossibility.
Yeah.
Even saying about it is false is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because it could mean something else. But if you say it's an impossibility, it's not a statement. It is formulated as a statement, but it's not a statement. It's a blah, 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 blah. But formulated in such a way to deceive you that there's some meaning. There's nothing. It's no better than blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
Just count how many letters there and put it.
Mm.
That's it.
Exactly.
So don't ever go to the infinite and start with it. Start with the finite and go cautiously with a strict discipline,
Yeah.
go with the infinity. And see if you can get conclusion, if there's a limit, which you can make conclusion about, or there's none.
That's what I said. I
If
said
there's
that.
none, it is diverges like the future, meaning it's genuinely open. Meaning, I once saw a movie, it was a joke, obviously, that
Yeah.
people showing people riding horses, they were going toward the end of history. And they come to a mountain and written it, end of history. Something like that does not exist. Only for the Jabri. And then you can postulate that Allah is dead, blind, is a nature. It's not a free agent. That's the only way to have an end of history in that sense. The mistake made by some Mu'tazili saying the action of the people of Jannah slowly disappear until they freeze is based on that future events.
Like, what did they say? Say that again.
Some Mu'tazili said the action of the people of Jannah will slowly freeze out, and everything ends in a frozen state. Otherwise, we'll have some kind of infinite regress forward, but it's not infinite regress. That's a divergent series which never ends. There's no need for it to diverge. There's nothing necessitating its divergence. Nothing. So it can go on and on and on. You will never find the sign saying stop here. Time has ended.
So they were arguing that it will stop one day. Everything will end and stop one day.
Yeah, because of the mistake of understanding infinities and limits.
Yeah.
And the difference between convergence and divergence. In the past, the system of reason dictated there must be converged to some point or several points. Several points is not possible because the various arguments. It's only one point. So everything from past is spreading open. Going to the future doesn't merge again because no necessity dictating that. It could merge again. It could disperse forever.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
similar to the analogy of numbers. Numbers hypothetically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the same with you start naturally by necessity by the natural numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and develop there.
Well, you have to go from the finite to the infinite like that, as you said.
But then you make a leap of faith. Zero is not included at the beginning. That's the reason there was no symbol for zero in all languages essentially until very recently. Because psychologically the people felt it's not a number. How can I say I have the number zero? Nothing.
It's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing.
But so what I did, the fact that that your wealth can be counted, let's say, in dinars. You have 5 dinars plus 2 dinars will be said. But what's happened if you take away dinars for whatever purpose? You have subtraction that can be defined. But what happened? But it's not possible to do subtraction with a number bigger than what you have. How can we do that? What does it mean? The solution for that is that you remind yourself that you sometimes in debt of someone.
Yeah.
And you only have in your bag dinars.
Yep.
If you consider the debt that you must pay it one day and you want to pay it now, it has to be deducted. If it is more than there, you are bankrupt and they will eliminate the remaining money and distribute under them or sell you for slavery market in the law systems. So you define that the negative numbers as the number of the dinars and so on who you are in debt with. And then we recognize that zero is now a legitimate number because it's meaning that you are owe as much as you earn. If you pay what you owe, you're blank. That makes sense. That's zero.
Yeah.
And then more, you become -1, -2. and just go at infinity to the left. Some people say, you see the numbers start from infinity to infinity. No, the numbers start from 1 and go here and go here. That's again a deception. See, the number axis is infinite. If we go from the natural number to the whole numbers, the positive and the negative one. First of all, the negative numbers is also like taqdeer, not really real as the number 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when we do that step, then 0 becomes a legitimate number. It makes sense to say, I have 0 dinar. Before that, people say, how can I have number? I have a dinars with the number 0. Looks offensive. Now, if we add, do this addition of issue debt and the obligation to pay, which is highly abstract, is not, you cannot pick it by like, in the case 1, you will pick 1 orange, 2 orange, 3 orange. It makes sense. There's material representation for that. And this then will open doors of defining finite set theory in a correct way. And define, and thus we show you that the code that in any reasonable finite set, the empty set is well defined. It's essentially the set itself, removing all elements, but the envelope is still there. The bag, the accounting system is still there. So it makes sense to say that is an empty set. But the empty set from a bag which used to have orange is an empty set of oranges. It's a bag which used to have oranges, and it's different than the empty set of apples. So the empty set is only relative to a certain given established set. When you go to make a leap of faith, it's the absolutely empty set, meaning there is an absolutely comprehensive set, the set of all sets. And if you say that, you are falling in contradiction immediately. There is no set of all set. It's contradictory. So there is no absolute empty set, because the emptiness is only relative to already existing collection. And that a collection process making sense. The collection process for the finite make good sense, we can comprehend it. And then we expand bit by bit by bit in various directions, and then we may speak about infinite sets as if they are there. One mathematician, at least in the turn of the 20th century, said, no, this is only a process. There is no infinite set of there. Okay, we can agree. I use the name as the infinite set as it existed, just a shorthand notation of the process. If I say it's a process, I'm also it's very clumsy. We say the infinite set of natural numbers, meaning there's a process which go to infinity. But this is less clumsy, and I treat it as I said. If I do that, can it be done consistently? It shows that it can be done consistently. It can be done consistently. But if we say the set of all sets, this is an impossible process to achieve ever. So this thing is an impossibility with the usual proof. The set of all set must contain itself, because itself is a set. But if it contains itself, it cannot be the set of all sets. And the opposite. Impossible. It's an opposite. It's just a linguistic deception. And that will shock the people at the beginning, because they're working with set theory naively. And then Russell detected this calamity, and there was a shock for several years. And his cooperative mathematician in Germany, what's his name? I think I remember his name. When he heard that, he fell sick and stayed in the hospital for several weeks for this calamity. A German mathematician. And Russell did not come to know that. Say, I'm amazed about that. I almost fell ill, but he is stronger than me. He did not fall ill, because nobody told him that he fell ill when they were in the hospital. And later then Zermelo and Frankel formulated the set theory in a formal way, so that's avoided by axioms. That's it. And became more axiomatized to exclude any problem. And now we have axiom system, which until now nobody got any contradiction. But these simple contradiction of the set of all sets and the absolute empty sets all have disappeared now. All have disappeared.
You know, I just got an idea of stuff. You know, not just an idea. Me and Rash were talking about this before. We should together maybe react to some of Muhammad Hijab's lessons on Kalam.
Inshallah. No, but it's not very late now. What's it? How much time do we have now?
No, not now. I mean, we should.
No, I mean, I know, but even now, we should go to the conclusion, and the recording is available. Inshallah, you can go through it and analyze it and come with counter analysis and so on. But my advice to anyone, to myself and any philosopher and material world, don't start with the infinite things. This is death trap, because it's impossible for the finite mind to start with the infinite. Start with the
You
finite.
can't go from
You
yeah,
can't
exactly.
get it. You can't get it. You can have presented in your mind, and you look to it with the eye of the mind, and you see it, and you can deal with it, and then expand bit by bit. Try to find a process which is well controlled and consistent, and go slow and cautious, and then see where you get.
Yeah.
And never dare going there. That's what got killed by Al-Mutakallimin. They went to the start of the infinite. You will end nowhere.
Yeah, that's why I give the analogy. From now, we can't go to the infinite past, but from now we can go to the infinite future, hypothetically.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's not out, because it's open. It's divergent. In the past, it
Exactly.
must be convergent because of the
exactly.
the necessity of reason.
Yes.
Otherwise, the other evil alternative, if you regard as the alternative at all, is the magic universe. The
Yeah.
whole discourse does not make any sense anyway. It's very well
Yeah.
possible that Muhammad and the Quran from Allah, and it's very possible it's not. It's just an imagination. Both are
Yeah.
possible then. It's another complete another. And that's what you deal, for example, with the Hindu, and say it is like that for 10 to a year. So, okay, this is a complicated theory. It may be true. But how we know that's otherwise? Like, for example, the Sufis say, or the new Platonians say something else. And there's nothing which balances. This is 50-50, and this 50-50. Do I insist that is the ultimate which the human mind can reach? No, no, it's not. It's nonsense. That's what the new Platonians said. No, no, it's not. It's not. That's what Ibn Arabi said in poetic language. Space is a frozen time, and time is a frozen space, is a liquid space. Blah, 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 blah.
Space is a frozen time.
Space is the frozen time, and time is the liquid space. And some people say, oh, look, he has preempted Einstein. To the hell with you and Einstein. Who said that Einstein is right? The theory of relativity is having also a fundamental problem. But because we have to refer to experiment, there's some control there, preventing the calamity.
Yeah.
So the harm is less, but now we slowly are getting to places where the relativity theory fails, but quantum theory is still valid, which is rely on absolute time and some kind of an absolute space.
Sheikh, you got a few minutes for a brother asking questions.
Yeah.
Just
okay.
try and be quick, inshallah, if you can.
Terminate quickly, inshallah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Brother, if you want to unmute. Edward?
Maybe he's gone already.
Yeah, and he's unmuted. I'm going to do my Maghrib, my Isha and stuff, inshallah. But if you carry on speaking, try not to be too long, inshallah, yeah? Okay. Far away, bruv.
Assalamu alaikum.
We'll all pray after that, don't worry. Yeah, alaikum salam.
Okay, based on what you said before about buying and selling an item that is haram or whatever, I have an uncle who he can't do shopping for himself, and he's not Muslim, and I normally just buy him anything from the store, whether that's pork or whatever. Is that permissible?
I gave you the answer already. Apply it.
The answer will probably be no then.
No, why no? Tell me exactly what you're doing.
I buy him pork, sausages and stuff, etc.
We said already that. Is being buying for food is haram for him, for the one who buy and sells. Or acting on his behalf. We have to analyze, is that are you regarding as a buyer or just an agent of the buyer? We have to just get this point. It's more closer. It appears to me it's more closer like being a transporter and receiving money for it. And they're not receiving money for this thing. So you are not a buyer or seller, I would say. I would say you can't do it. You can't help me with that. For khamr, no, because you will be a carrier and transporter. And this is for the specific hadith.
All right.
Just learn to analyze things on your own. You don't need to ask everyone about every petty point. Look at the principle. What is my status? Am I the buyer, seller, or I'm getting salary for doing the work? And what is it for the buying and selling? Then it is, I am a co-buyer or agent in buying, or it is for the transporting. Things like that. Okay?
Yeah. All right.
Analyze your situation correctly. Yeah. Any other question, or should we close that? Rush, don't go. We are going all to pray now. All of us are doing Jamaat Akhir. Now, once we shut down, we can start Salah. And still time is open until midnight, the real midnight, not the fake midnight. That's 1 o'clock then. So there's no problem. We have plenty of time for that.
What's the real midnight, Ustad?
1 o'clock, because the time is shifted, but doesn't change the reality that midnight is not 12, or around 12, is actually 1 in the summertime. It is 12 in the winter time. But nominally, if you ask a system, what is the temperature at midnight, they will tell you temperature at 12 o'clock, not at 1 o'clock, because it goes by midnight as set by the conventional date, not by the position or the real position of the sun at the nadir for the noon, or down opposite out at the so-called zenith, the bottom. Yeah. And we know the time of Salah up to midnight. After midnight, it will be qada, or it will be, or it will extend at after the beginning of Fajr and so on. They're very important. But at midnight, you are safe that you are still in the original time. It's not qada or anything else. Okay. Okay. The only one who has access to close shutdown is Raj. I think I will close from my side, and the rest can close from there. Yeah.
No problem. No problem.
I can't attend to Salah because sitting there waiting, he should have waited with us. There's no hurry, but he want to benefit from 10 minutes extra, and also would like to benefit from them. Yeah.
He assumed that we're going to take long to talk, maybe. That's fine.
No. Even if longer, because he has to get up and pray anyway after that, and then go to bed right away and so on. بارك في الله. بسم الله. يلا I'm closing.
السلام عليكم.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد، وبارك على محمد وعلى محمد وباركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. حسبك على عذاب النار. تصبحون على خير، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Everyone gone?
Just log out. خلاص يعني. I logged
Okay,
out.
sure.
But
Okay.
didn't log out completely.
Okay, John.
Yeah, it's finished.
Okay. By the way, just a quick reminder, Palestine update from Ukash, inshallah.
Yeah. And also you remind him, which I told him,